across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, a very good evening. I'm Peter Cardwell. It's just gone 7 o'clock and Peter Mandelson has been arrested. A sensational but probably expected development in this huge moving story about Jeffrey Epstein and the effect he had, and indeed who his friends were. His best pal, Peter Mandelson, now in police custody, almost certain to spend a night at least in the cells in the police station he was brought to earlier on today. Well, a full reaction to that, including from a Labour MP, in just a second. Later on in the programme, we hope to speak to someone who was in the room with him as business secretary and Alistair Darling when Alistair Darling was Chancellor of the Exchequer. It was a few minutes later when apparently Peter Mandelson sent some of those documents he was given to Jeffrey Epstein. That is what he's been arrested on suspicion of doing: misconduct in public office. What does that actually mean? We'll come through to all of that later on. We'll also talk about Reform UK, Zia Youssef, their Home Affairs spokesman, and exactly what he has proposed. Also an anti-Semitism row, which is affecting a columnist, Yasmin Alabai-Brown, and some outrageous, ridiculous comments she has made. We'll get into all of that in just a second. Lots to discuss, and I want to discuss it with you this evening. It's my first time doing one of these evening shows. I'm told there's a great audience. I hope that everybody at home, whether you're in your home, whether you're in your car, in your van, however you're listening or watching to the programme, that you will get in touch. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. What do you think about Mandelson's arrest? You can also text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a voice note. Let's play out as many of those as we can between now and 10 o'clock. 0344 499 1000. That's the number for calls. That's the number for WhatsApp text messages as well. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, on whatever issue, whatever's on the tip of your tongue, send it through, pick up the phone and let me know what you think, because this is my show, this week at least, but it's your show too. Plenty to discuss, including that sensational arrest of Peter Mandelson here on Talk. Well, the government minister Jackie Smith was on Sky News a little bit earlier on. She did not look happy because the news broke shortly before she spoke to Sky News. This is what she said.
Yeah, but as Mel Stride was just saying, these are images which will not go down well in Downing Street at all. More problems for Keir Starmer, because it does reflect on Keir Starmer's decision to appoint him as ambassador to Washington in the first place.
Well, of course, as soon as Keir Starmer understood what the reality of Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was, he sacked him in the middle of the night, actually. So, you know, I think that's an important area of judgment. But, you know, yeah, of course, to be frank,
Jackie Smith there not looking happy. Let's speak to one of her Labour colleagues. Graham Stringer is the Labour MP for Blakely and Middleton South. Graham, regarding what Jackie Smith said there, is that enough to say, well, actually, this arrest has happened, and as soon as Keir Starmer knew the reality of Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, he was sacked? Is that enough in all of this? Because the question will not just be about Peter Mandelson. The question, surely, Graham, will be about Keir Starmer's judgment too.
Yeah, I think we know he knew quite a lot when Peter Mandelson was appointed as the ambassador to the United States. And there clearly is a question of judgment there, where he came to know a lot more detail later and then sacked Peter Mandelson. It looks to me, from what I know, as though it wasn't the normal process for appointing an ambassador. And I'm sure that will be examined over the coming weeks. Obviously, Peter Mandelson will have to go through due process, and the law will take its course.
It is an absolutely extraordinary scene, is it not, Graham, to see someone who was effectively the Deputy Prime Minister, Business Secretary, Northern Ireland Secretary, someone who was sacked or resigned in disgrace twice from two Labour governments, to then be appointed in a third to the key role of ambassador to the United States, being arrested, put in a police car today. What was your reaction when you saw and heard about that, Graham?
Well, I think the reaction was, I think, very, very his arrest. It's not a good look for the Labour Party. The one thing I would say about he was sacked twice from the cabinet. The second time, of course, he was exonerated after he'd been sacked and found he had no case to answer with the Hinduja passport issue. So it was only one, but that's not a good look either. Being sacked once is bad enough. I think it's appalling. I think it's appalling for the Labour Party that on the same day a Cabinet Office Minister comes under investigation. Peter Mandelson, who has been instrumental in many of the Labour Party's victories. I mean, he's an effective campaigner. And has been an important person at the heart of the Labour Party, is arrested. As I said, the law will have to take its course. But whatever happens, it looks terrible for the Labour Party and for the Prime Minister's judgment.
Yes, you mentioned the Cabinet Office Minister Josh Simons. He used to be head of an organisation called Labour Together. He is now going to be looked into by Sir Laurie Magnus, who is the Ministerial Standards Advisor. It's interesting within all that, isn't it, that this comes on the same day, this inquiry into a government minister, and the allegation, certainly, that Labour Together paid £36,000 to an outfit called APCO to look into journalists and to smear them. This is, I mean, Keir Starmer said he was going to clean up politics. Do you think he has, Graham?
As I've just said, I think this looks absolutely terrible. Most of the public will not follow the details in the way you do or I do about what's happened. They will not know Josh Simon's defence, that he thought there had been some hacking of emails, where the investigation will show whether or not that's true. What the public will see is one of the major figures in the Labour Party for the last 35 years is being arrested. They will see a young man, a very talented young man, who is under investigation at the heart of the government in the Cabinet Office. And as I say, very few people will know all the details. It just gives a very bad image and lets off a pretty pungent odour about the government at the moment.
We've also had Gordon Brown appearing as a sort of white knight to give lots of information. He originally asked for a Cabinet Office inquiry, didn't get one, and has now written to a number of police forces. A number of my viewers and listeners saying, well, why didn't he act sooner? Of course, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know whether the Epstein files being released prompted Gordon Brown's most recent letters. But if things were known in years gone by, particularly by Gordon Brown and perhaps by the King, as the Mail on Sunday suggested yesterday, this goes a lot further, does it not, than simply Peter Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor?
It does. It makes the whole of the British establishment look seedy. I can't think of a better word than that. It goes into the monarchy, and clearly it goes to the heart of the Labour Party and the government and the Foreign Office. It is a bad look. Not just, it is for the Labour Party, but for British democracy and for the British establishment. It is the beginning of a major crisis of confidence in our institutions. I think over the last 15, 20 years, probably since the MP's expenses scandal, gradually the public have been moving from a sensible, sceptical view about politics and what was going on to outright cynicism, where they don't trust anything that anybody in the establishment says. And I think that is terrible for democracy, for the future of our country. And this just makes people feel bad about ourselves.
What should Keir Starmer do now? Can he get trust back? Of course, Peter Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor deny any wrongdoing and will continue to protest their innocence. But as you say, it looks seedy, it feels bad for so many people. There is an emotional process that people go through when it comes to politics. You correctly say that you and I and many of our viewers and listeners will look at these things in great depth and know all the details, but a lot of people don't. And I just wonder whether there is a way back here, and whether Keir Starmer is the man to get it back, especially as he said he was going to clean up politics, but that just doesn't seem to have been the case.
I think I've answered that question that you put to me in a different way previously. I think the point where the Prime Minister is at his most vulnerable, and whether the bodies he is accountable to, the Parliamentary Labour Party and the Labour Party, will consider his future, and this will be part of that consideration, I'm sure, is after the local government elections. Yes. And the elections in Wales and Scotland. There's a by-election going on. I don't know what's going to happen there. I've knocked on doors in that by-election. It's difficult to tell what will happen, but I don't think that will be the difficult point if indeed the Labour Party lose. It will be early May.
Yeah. Very interesting to talk to you. Thank you, Graham Stringer there, Labour MP for Blakely and Middleton South. Thanks everybody who's been in touch, including welcoming me to this slot. I'm here Monday to Thursday between 7 and 10. Liam says I'm far too loyal to you. Here I am at 7 o'clock, tuned in, ready to go. This government is surely over now, says Liam. At what point do they realise this isn't working for anyone? Call it now, and the Labour Party may get to go in the future. Continue, and you'll be appointing an administrator in the not too distant future, and the party will be well and truly over, says Liam. I'd imagine if he goes to trial, says Dave NZ, he will be deemed not in good health to attend. Well, Peter Mandelson's only 72. That's still young in many respects. Thank you to everybody who's been in touch. We'll take some more calls. We'll take some calls in a minute. But I just want to talk a little bit about what misconduct in public office actually is before I go to political commentator Andy Williams. It's very interesting that he's been arrested, Peter Mandelson, and previously Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor on Thursday. He's been released under investigation, used to be called police bail. Misconduct in public office has been described as an unusual offence where each case must be assessed individually. It refers to serious willful abuse or neglect of powers relating to the role in public office. This is the Crown Prosecution Service explaining this. There must be a direct link between the misconduct and an abuse of those powers or responsibilities without reasonable excuse or justification. There's no simple definition of a public office, meaning each case must be assessed individually. If you're an unpaid trade envoy, for example, is that a public office? If you're ambassador to the US, that to me would be a public office, but maybe there's some argument about that legally. They take into account the nature of the role, the duties carried out, and the level of public trust involved. So there's a lot in this, and as you can see on the screen, we're going to keep playing that clip, and you're going to see it many times throughout this programme, and I would expect over the next few days, of Peter Mandelson, peer of the realm, former business secretary, former Northern Ireland secretary, the de facto deputy prime minister to Gordon Brown, former ambassador to the United States, being taken from his home in London, Regent's Park, very exclusive area, hugely expensive home, and put into the back of an unmarked police car. Off the 72-year-old went to the police station. Andy Williams is with me now, the political commentator. Andy, you're very welcome to the programme. How are you doing?
Good to see you, Peter. Yeah, very well, thank you.
When you saw that footage that we're playing, and will be playing over and over again, I'm sure, what was your reaction?
Well, I mean, it is remarkable. Firstly, this is no understatement, one of the most influential political figures in this country over the last 35 years.
Yeah.
He was absolutely one of the three major architects of New Labour.
I mean, his autobiography was called The Third Man. The
Third Man, which I've had to move now in my study at home. But no, he is a seriously influential person, and this is not defending him in any way, a very capable person, somebody who transformed, for better or for worse, the way we do politics in Britain, particularly from a communications standpoint. And he was deemed, after all of his misdemeanours in the past, he was still deemed suitable to become ambassador to the United States. Now, I think Keir Starmer can't say this, but the truth is the reason he was appointed to that role is because Keir Starmer sat down and went, who is cynical enough, mendacious enough, ready to sort of get down and dirty in the swamp with Donald Trump? There aren't many people who can stand toe-to-toe with somebody as difficult, who is as much of a bully, and who is as capricious as Donald Trump. And actually, Mandelson was, in many ways, sort of seen as the right person for that job. There was a clear issue with the vetting there. But I think, to come back to that image, you know, seeing somebody as powerful, as wealthy, and as influential as him, quietly walking out of his home, being kind of ushered into a police car.
Utterly humiliating.
I mean, totally humiliating. And for somebody who, let's be frank, is pretty shameless, he is quite a shameless individual, he will be feeling, I would think and hope, a very deep sense of shame this evening, and also a massive concern about his future, because, as you say, this is a very difficult offence to prove, but unless those emails have been doctored or manufactured in some way, and they seem not to have been, he's in big trouble.
Peter Mandelson, of course, denies he's done anything wrong. He hasn't made any public statement for a number of weeks now, but his position always has been that he's done nothing wrong. It'll be very interesting to see if the police and indeed the Crown Prosecution Service agree with that assessment. I want to hear a voice note now from Dave, who has sent me in first voice note of the evening. You can send these in via WhatsApp 0344 499 1000. Let's hear what Dave has to say on Peter Mandelson.
It's just about Mandelson. We're allowed our own opinions, are we? Well, here's my opinion. I think the guy ain't done that wrong, and he's just being persecuted, probably for something they know he knows. Maybe like he's going to spit something, maybe about Keir Starmer or whatever, and it's just a distraction, in my opinion. Trying to do him for treason. The only person that should be done for treason is Keir Starmer. He should be locked up for a very, very, very long time for putting the public in grave danger.
Dave, that's not what they're trying to, well, that he's been arrested on suspicion of. It's misconduct in public office. And look, we don't know what the police can prove, but what we have seen in the public domain, as Andy has just said, is a lot of emails apparently sent by Peter Mandelson to Jeffrey Epstein, apparently just a few minutes after some of those meetings in Downing Street. What do you make of what Dave has said there, Andy?
I couldn't disagree with it more strongly. You know, what we've seen in terms of let's put to one side the Jeffrey Epstein relationship and the morality of that and the judgment involved with not just continuing to maintain a relationship with a convicted paedophile, but celebrating his release. This is somebody who was sending sensitive information about investment opportunities and all sorts of other aspects, even the EU bailout plan, to somebody who, even if he had no connections or hadn't been convicted of the things he had been convicted of, who had no reason to be receiving these documents whatsoever or this information. It looks as though Peter Mandelson was sitting in cabinet in the late 2000s, and his first thought was not, I'm serving my country as First Secretary of State, which, by the way, is effectively Deputy Prime Minister, as Business Secretary, in really significant influential roles. He should have been thinking, as Alistair Darling was, as Gordon Brown was, and presumably as every single member of that cabinet was, how can I actually help Britain get through this enormous financial crisis? Peter Mandelson's first thought was, how can I help my friend Jeffrey make a buck? That's what was going on.
Yeah, and of course, Peter Mandelson, as I expect I will say on a number of occasions this evening and on other evenings, denies any wrongdoing. Karen is in Bournemouth and has given me a shout on 0344 499 1000. Karen, you're the first caller of the evening. You're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter.
Hi there.
Just to say that if Mr. Mandelson was doing dodgy dealings with Epstein, you can almost guarantee that he was doing dodgy dealings with other people as well.
Karen, I mean, that is a reasonable suspicion, and we don't know whether there were dodgy dealings, but what we do know is that we have those emails from Epstein. We don't have other emails. We don't know who else he was in contact with.
No, that's true, but I think one of the things we might just find out is the real reason that Starmer hired him. I don't believe that stuff that, he just lied to me and I didn't know.
I mean, if someone has lied on a number of occasions previously, if someone is someone who does not tell the truth in general and has left government twice for those reasons, although, as Graham Stringer correctly pointed out, the second time he was exonerated, surely you just, if someone's a liar, you don't trust them, do you? And then they lie to you and you go, oh gosh, he's a liar. It does seem that Starmer's judgment is in question here.
Well, it's definitely in question, but I wouldn't trust Starmer further than I could throw him anyway. And if there are other connections along through Epstein's line or through Mandelson's line, they may well reach the government of now.
Well, we'll see what happens. Karen, listen, thank you for that. Thanks to Angela, who's been in touch and says, regarding Graham Stringer, Mandelson resigns, McSweeney resigned, Starmer sacked no one. He threw King Charles under the bus over Andrew, who deserves all he gets. Mandelson should have been arrested weeks ago. Gordon Brown should be under suspicion after targeting Andrew. I don't agree with that, Angela. And the biggest cover-up to throw everything away from Starmer. How should we, Andy Williams, evaluate the role of Gordon Brown here? Because quite a number of my viewers and listeners saying, actually, hold on a second here. If Gordon Brown knew stuff, he should have said beforehand. He did try in September to get a Cabinet Office investigation. That didn't happen. But should we say that he's this white knight, this amazing figure who's got great integrity?
I don't think it's either of those things. I mean, I certainly don't think there's anything dodgy going on with Gordon Brown. He's probably the most... I mean, his behaviour when he was Chancellor and Prime Minister in terms of being a very difficult person to work with, arguably a bully, all of those sorts of things, I mean, that's a matter of public record. But is he somebody who would be engaging in anything dodgy whatsoever? I would be astonished. I mean, I really would be shocked. There is the aspect, and I think it's important to say that Mandelson and Brown, they were, if not enemies, I was going to say enemies. Yeah,
hated each other with the heat of 1,000 suns.
They did, yes. and actually, we all know that Brown brought Mandelson back into government in 2008 because he sort of thought, well, maybe not a last throw of the dice, but let's give this a go. This guy's talented individual. It made it look like the Brown-Blair wars were over. I genuinely think, maybe this is naive, but I think Gordon Brown is somebody more so probably, or at least as much as any Prime Minister we've had in the last 30 or 40 years, is someone who's deeply motivated by public service. And I think he will be truly disgusted by not just Mandelson's ongoing relationship with Epstein, but also the fact that he was sitting in Gordon Brown's cabinet meetings, leaking not just confidential information, but information that could actually have done damage to the British state, fundamentally.
That's what the emails show, and Peter Mandelson, yet again, denies any wrongdoing. Thank you to everybody who's been in touch. We're going to talk more about Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor after the break, but I want to say thanks to Rob in Dublin, who says, I'm all ears in this new time slot, Peter, looking forward to it. Well, it's just Monday to Thursday for the moment, Rob, but I really appreciate your company this week. He also, another Robert says, can we have Cat of the Week? I'm afraid those days are gone. But listen, we had 100 of them, and they did well. More no pussyfooting around the issue of Peter Mandelson. We will talk about that more in just a second. Stay with us.
So we do remain committed to the deal. The base at Diego Garcia is absolutely critical to our national security.
But we have it already.
Critical, yes, but following a legal case that took place, that position of the base was put into jeopardy, and we need to set that situation right so that we can continue to operate the base at Diego Garcia to make sure we've got a clear legal underpinning for that to happen. But the base is critical to our national security, both abroad and at home. The actions on that base keep people here in this country safe from harm and safe from nations that would wish to do us ill.
Across the UK, on DAB+, On YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you, everybody who's been in touch. You can get your call in on this, on Mandelson, on Andrew, 0344 499 1000. Just been looking at a few tweets there during the break. London Oil Trader says Gordon Brown was thinking about he can be seen to be saving the UK after he destroyed the UK by backing RBS. Bob in Surrey says Starmer put Mandelson in Washington to persuade Trump to agree Chagos. Seb says man arrested and being questioned. That's the full story. Meanwhile, there are a million more important things going on. Are there, Seb? There are lots of things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Reform UK's Home Affairs plan a bit later on in the programme. We're going to talk about an anti-Semitism row involving Yasmin Al-Arabi-Brown. Don't worry, she's not on the programme. And there are lots and lots of people who want to get in touch in all sorts of issues, particularly Mandelson. That astonishing footage of her being arrested. Pete says, will Barry Manilow now make it back into the charts again with Mandy? Well, there's certainly a number of parodies going around that I've seen anyway. Very interesting on Andrew as well, because at the BAFTAs last night, Prince William saying he was not in a calm state to watch the film Hamlet, which won many awards after months of turmoil around his wife's cancer and his uncle's recent arrest, of course. It's been interesting to see how all of this has been linked up. Andrew last Thursday, Mandelson today, Andy Williams.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does. I think the thing that the sort of overwhelming reaction of the public is there something sort of at the heart of the British establishment that is rotten, that is wrong? Rotten in the state of Denmark, if you don't mind making the comparison.
Well, indeed. And actually, Graham Stringer talked about that as well. And Kemi Badenoch saying it's the defining moment of the Prime Minister's tenure. Do you agree with that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think absolutely everyone accepts, not least the Prime Minister himself, that in the end it was a massive misjudgment. But if you go back and look at the receipts, there were plenty of people, not least at least 75% of people in the media,
yes,
who said, fantastic, well done, brilliant appointment, what a smart guy. So it wasn't as though Keir Starmer was out on a limb here. It was a bad decision. It's been shown to be a terrible decision. But I think if you're looking at defining moments of his premiership, you'd look at things more like the last couple of budgets, major decisions around the economy, and actually
but this is a massive judgment call, is it not? Let me just read you what Kemi Badenoch has said. She said it's a matter of when Starmer goes, not if he goes. I asked him if he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson just a few weeks ago, and he said yes, despite all these allegations being known. Only to see the man arrested shows the Prime Minister has terrible judgment. He's weak. He has not released the information around the Mandelson files, though he sacks the person who's supposed to be overseeing the release. I think that shows what kind of person the Prime Minister is. She has reiterated her calls for the Prime Minister to release the documents related to Lord Mandelson's appointment as UK ambassador. She said, Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservatives, Starmer needs to be transparent and let us see what it is that has been hidden for so long. We need to know. It is Parliament's job to hold the government to account. He's been hoping that people would have been distracted by the arrest of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. I have said I'm not going to be distracted. My job is to hold him to account.
It's classic Kemi. And I'll tell you why it's classic Kemi, because she starts off with quite a good point, right? She's a smart person, and her good point is that Keir Starmer's judgment, and particularly around hiring individuals, is pretty poor. I mean, he's had to sack multiple people for all sorts of different reasons.
Morgan McSweeney, Peter Mandelson.
And other government ministers,
loads
although
of
that's kind of par for the course. But
Transport Secretary
but then
fraud.
Then classic Kemi, she goes off on a massive, not just a tangent, but down a sort of almost conspiratorial rabbit hole. The reason these files haven't been released yet is because there's loads of them and it takes time, and the police are involved. So there is no cover-up, there is no conspiracy. In fact, she knows she was the one who actually ensured that even more files would be, even more information would be released than the government was hoping for. In terms of anything being hidden, actually a bunch of stuff that's going to be published in many ways should never have seen the light of day. We're going to get private messages, private emails that don't really have anything to do with Peter Mandelson's role as ambassador to the United States, and don't really have anything at all to do with Jeffrey Epstein. I'm not
the transparency around this,
and I totally understand that. But what's completely illegitimate is to suggest that the Prime Minister's engaging in a cover-up. It's just these things take time. And she knows that, and that's why I think
we know
it's
when
cynical.
actually Darren Jones, who's Chief Secretary to the Prime Minister, said today that it will be early March
Next
when
month,
a lot of this will be put out. The police have asked for some of it to be held back, which is interesting too.
Yeah.
I just wonder from the Andrew perspective, we know, of course, that he is released pending investigation. Those searches have gone on again today at Royal Lodge. We'll see what happens with that. But big revelation by Isabel Oakeshott in the Mail on Sunday yesterday that King Charles was told as long ago as 2019 that Andrew may have been using business connections badly and abusing the name of the monarchy. I'm sure that wouldn't have come necessarily as a huge shock. But as I said to Graham Stringer, this goes way beyond just the two people, Andrew and Mandelson, who are involved in this.
Of course it does. It asks questions about how we organise our way of governing, and it does. You know, I'm not a Republican. I think the monarchy is an on balance good institution. I think the stability it brings from having a head of state who's not subject to the whims of the electorate is basically a good thing. I'm sure that Charles wasn't surprised at all. He would have known the character of his brother. Anyone who's been paying attention for the last, you might not have been able to predict exactly how Andrew was behaving, but anyone who's been paying attention since their wedding before I was born could tell you that he was basically a nasty, entitled piece of work who fundamentally was flying around the world trying to grift and get as much money as he possibly could, and his wife was the same. By the way, I'd encourage everybody to read an amazing book called Entitled by Andrew Lowney.
We've had him on the station a number of times. Yeah,
about Andrew and Sarah Ferguson and their behaviour. And I mean, I always think you can. The fundamental way you can judge a person is how do they treat and behave towards people who are junior, who don't have as much power and as much money as they do. And hundreds of examples show that Andrew treated juniors incredibly badly. It may have implications for the royal family. I don't think it's fair necessarily to throw Charles under the bus because he wasn't the chief exec, he wasn't the monarch until sort of 3.5 years ago.
Do we need to reevaluate our review of Queen Elizabeth II?
Well, we certainly, I mean, I don't think, given that she was on the throne for 60...
Over 70 years.
70 years. I don't think it'd be fair to sort of throw out her legacy for this one misjudgment, but it's a pretty significant misjudgment. Now, you can understand that she's a mother. Having said that, she clearly, time and time again, if not turned a blind eye, maybe didn't quite react as quickly as she could have done. And there's one other point I'd make, which is the monarchy's way of communicating and of its relationship with the public has historically been this mantra, never complain, never explain. Never complain that you're in the public eye because think of all the benefits you have. Never explain because once you open up that front in your communication with the public and with the media, you create more problems. The problem is that's a very outdated way of looking at things. And actually, time and time again, the royal family in the last, ever since this has been on the agenda, which is sort of 15, 16 years now, but particularly post the Newsnight interview in 2019, the palace and their communications team and the way they've approached this, they've been behind the curve. They need to really clearly explain what individuals knew and when. And by the way...
But that would implicate a lot of people. I'm not saying they shouldn't do that. I'm simply saying that, you know, people are saying, oh, Charles is great, he said the law must take its course and all the rest of it. Well, actually, that statement should have come out a long time ago.
Totally agree. And what I would say even more than that is we know that Andrew paid off Virginia Giuffre to the tune of £12 million. I would suggest that almost every single person listening right now, myself certainly included, that is an unimaginable amount of money. And we know that it didn't come from him because Andrew's never earned that kind of money, he's never earned that kind of that we know of.
Yeah.
So there is strong reason to believe that the vast majority of that came from the Queen herself, from her private funds, and from what I've read, about 1.5 million came from other members of the royal family. We know not William and Kate, because William has come out and said very clearly it wasn't him, but that money, that huge amount of money, came from somewhere, and it was explicitly to pay someone off for their silence.
Who he said he had never met.
Correct.
His point was he had never met. If anyone has never met me and wants to give me £12 million, you're very welcome. I can send it care of talkTars.
Your friendship is worth more, Peter.
Small bills, big bills, whatever you like. Amanda says, evening, Peter, for heaven's sake, what will it take to bring this corrupt government down? We can but live in hope it will be sooner rather than later. Chris is in Epsom and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Chris, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi, Peter. We spoke the other day, and I watched you, just taking it off of what you're talking about, Andrew and Mandelson, just for a sec, because I'm completely fed up with those two. I only want to hear about it once the police have done all their investigations. We'll see the two of them roast. But you had Tugendhat on your programme, who was saying, and you were quite shocked with your face, actually, when he was saying, oh, he was following the Starmer line, that this deal had to go through, that this was the right thing to do, and it was the international...
Which deal are you talking about here, Chris?
Chagos.
Chagos, right, okay.
Chagos Islands.
Right.
And he was commentating, and he was absolutely following the Starmer-Hermer line completely. And then today...
I think you might mean Tobias Ellwood rather than Tom Tugendhat. Is that what you mean? Chris, you there?
Have I got the name mixed up?
I think you might have. So Tom Tugendhat is a current Conservative MP, but I know there was a lot of criticism. Was this just a few days ago, 2 or 3 days ago?
Yeah, then he appeared this morning and changed his tune completely.
Okay, I'm just not sure you're talking about the same person here, because I actually haven't interviewed Tom Tugendhat for probably a couple of months, maybe longer actually, but I did interview Tobias Ellwood, I think it was on Friday, in regard to Chagos, and there was a lot of criticism, certainly online and from some of our viewers and listeners, about his thoughts on Chagos. What's your thought on Chagos, Chris?
Well, my own personal thoughts?
Yes.
I hope that the three Chagosians that are on the small island 120 miles away from Diego Garcia get the support that Farage was trying to get to them. And then I know that the court has already ruled that they can't be removed at the moment, a temporary banning order on that removal.
That's right.
And I hope that under Section 1 and Section 8 of the ECHR, they can use Hermer and Starmer's own power play against them. Yeah. And hopefully, even if it goes through all the courts and they don't get the win beforehand, the general election will come up and it will be folded, and they'll get their homes back.
We'll certainly see what happens there, Chris. Appreciate your thoughts on that. You mentioned Nigel Farage there. We're going to talk about him in a second, because we'll be looking at Reform's deportation policy with Andy Williams, the political commentator, in a second. I want your thoughts on this too. 0344 499 1000. Really quite dramatic developments today. We had Zia Youssef, who is their Home Affairs spokesman, who was talking, giving his first speech in that role, talking about a British version of Trump's ICE unit and plans to deport 300,000 illegal migrants a year. I wonder what you think about that. Use the break to pick up the phone. Let me know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, there's lots to talk about in regard to Reform UK. They have pledged to restore Britain's Christian heritage by stopping churches being turned into mosques and deporting almost 300,000 illegal migrants every year. They also want to create a British ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to deport 288,000 migrants per year. This would be a UK deportation command, which would have capacity to detain up to 24,000 migrants at any time, possibly running 5 deportation flights a year. If Reform wins power, they would declare a national security emergency caused by what they call the invasion of illegal migrants. Farage has been talking about this, as has Zia Youssef, their Home Affairs spokesman. Let's have a look and a listen to what Nigel Farage said first on Starmer's performance on illegal boat crossings.
There is overwhelming public support for stopping the boats. But what do we get? We get failed Rwanda schemes, we get judges in Strasbourg stopping aeroplanes taking off. And actually, we've had every single Prime Minister since David Cameron saying very clearly, if you come into this country illegally, you will be removed. None of them have meant it. Most farcical of all, of course, is the current Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, with his smash the gangs concept, which of course has been a total failure, and now under his premiership more people across the Channel than under any other Prime Minister.
Zia Youssef, the Home Affairs spokesman, standing alongside Nigel Farage in Dover, talked about deportations and what Reform UK's policy would be.
The damage done to our great country by open borders and a succession of cowardly Tory and Labour governments is profound. The scars on our country are real, but I promise you, they are not irreversible. We can and will secure our borders and end the invasion. We will rebuild the high-trust society we once took for granted. We will take back our streets from the gangs and the prolific offenders. And we will revive the ultimate sovereignty of our Parliament. We'll discard the foreign laws that protect the wicked at the expense of the innocent.
Zia Youssef speaking there. He also spoke about welfare, and he says that should be the provision of welfare payments should be exclusive to British people. This is what Zia Youssef said about that.
The British welfare state should be available exclusively for the British people. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a slap in the face to every working man and woman in this country. The British taxpayers have been forced to spend £15 billion on universal credit welfare payments to foreign households in the last 18 months alone. Think of the state-of-the-art hospitals that money could build, the thousands of police officers it could put on our streets, the tax cuts it could deliver to struggling British families. We will stop this hemorrhage of national wealth. A Reform government will terminate welfare payments to foreign nationals.
Zia Youssef there, the Home Affairs spokesman of Reform UK. Chris has been in touch and says, fantastic announcement by Reform today. Zia is the right man for the job. I'm not sure Andy Williams agrees.
The not shadow Home Secretary. Imagine how completely shameless you would be to stand in front of a podium with a fake title. I mean, it's just, let's be absolutely clear. He is the Home Affairs spokesperson for a party with, is it 8 MPs now?
They're leading in the polls and have been for many months.
Yeah, of course they have. Not denying that, about a year, but I think they have 7 or 8 MPs.
8 MPs,
yeah. Very much not the shadow Home Secretary, so let's just clear that up. That's literally not how our system works.
That is a factual point. It is
like Nigel Farage calling himself leader of the opposition. He's not, is it?
It is a constitutional error.
So that's made up.
Incorrect. But then the Liberal Democrats for years have been calling themselves shadow this, that, or the other, and they're not. And
that's not true. Not formally.
They have.
No, they haven't formally.
They've often done.
They haven't. In any case, where to start with this terrible word soup of demonisation? I mean, on the welfare point, I mean, this is the most absurd piece of the whole thing. We do absolutely have a problem with overspending on welfare in this country. One of the things, as somebody who voted Labour, that I'm most disappointed with this government in over the last 18 months is their failure to tackle even the most egregious basic aspects of our ballooning welfare bill. But to say or to imply that that problem is entirely to do with migration is absolutely disgraceful and just factually wrong. The reason our welfare bill is ballooning primarily is twofold. Number one, we have an ageing population and we need to end our addiction to giving older, wealthier people, and that's not to say all older people are wealthy, because we know that's not the case, but many older people who do have means,
he's not
free
talking
money.
about
Hang on.
You know he's not talking about
I know
pensions
he's not.
here.
I know, but he's saying the reason the welfare bill is too high is because of migrants. That is what he's saying.
It's part of the issue.
It might be one aspect of it, but he is saying we could, and he literally says, if we didn't have welfare payments going to migrants, we could have tax cuts and state-of-the-art hospitals and this and that, and it's utter nonsense. I think
Can I just point out one thing?
Yeah, of course.
There is truth in what he's saying here, because if you don't give it to foreign nationals, if you don't give money to foreign nationals, there will be money. I'm not saying there'll be money for everything. I'm not saying you're going to have the NHS going to be fixed, and I don't think he's saying that either.
Well, he is, and so of course I agree with you. That is one aspect. We could have a debate about. I don't necessarily agree with the way he frames it. I think it's a blunt instrument to say that no foreign nationals should receive welfare in any circumstances. For example, if you're a foreign national who's been here for 10 years, you've had a job for 10 years, you're a higher rate taxpayer, you've paid in, suddenly you fall on hard times, you lose your job, you're made redundant. Do I think that individual in that example should have no access whatsoever to benefits? No, I do not. But the problem I have with the way he frames this discussion is, firstly, he's not talking about any of the other problems with the welfare bill, and actually mainly, in my view, the first thing we should be tackling is sort of what I'd call lower level mental health conditions, and the way that it's very easy to sign on and never be reassessed. But putting that to one side, he literally listed a number of things that if we don't give welfare payments to migrants, we will have. I think he used the figure 15 billion.
Yeah.
Okay, 15 billion a year, presumably. So 15 billion is 2p on income tax, right? Now, that would be a big tax cut, 2p off income tax for basic rate taxpayers. But once you've done that, what you wouldn't then have is
the money to do the other things.
So it's actually, you don't even have to interrogate the detail, surface level nonsense.
Let me move you on to the UK Deportation Command. It would have capacity to detain up to 24,000 migrants at a time, would run 5 deportation flights a day, if Reform wins power. The party has been talking about. They say they're going to withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights, and that this will follow from that. What do you think?
Firstly, I don't believe that withdrawing from the ECHR is the panacea that the Tories, with their review that was only ever going to conclude one way, and Reform, it's the same as their argument for leaving the European Union. If we only do this, everything will be fine.
But Farage has consistently argued that was done incorrectly, and the deal wasn't right, and he would have got it right. So the point is that Reform are saying we'll do it correctly in regard to the ECHR, and these flights will be allowed to take off because we won't be. We will pass laws that say that this is allowed to happen, and including withdrawing from the ECHR.
Well, what I would say to that is it's very easy to say, oh, I would have done it differently, and if only I'd been allowed to do it, everything would be fine. I mean, we can't know that. We can't know that. Now, people will believe their own. Will have their own perspective. Some people will say, you're absolutely right, Nigel, of course you would have done it perfectly. I happen to think that's nonsense.
But this is what they're doing now. They're saying, right, we didn't get the chance to get Brexit right because Reform UK or Reversion Brexit Party weren't in government. Now they're saying, this is essentially what's going to be in our manifesto here. We need to deport, in Reform's view, 288,000 migrants per year.
Well, I think if you extrapolate that over several years, it seems like an extraordinarily high number.
Well, they want net minus immigration. They want the population to go down.
Well, actually, even without reforming government, we might end up at net neutral migration in a couple of years under a Labour government. I mean, that is absolutely the direction of travel. And I don't just mean because it's gone down from a very, very high bar.
But they want fewer people in the country. They say 70 million is too many.
Well, I don't agree with that. I think
you don't think there's pressure on public services? You don't think that 70 million people and the great increase in the number of people in this country over the last few years has put that pressure on those public services?
Of course, but that's a factor of public services, like a failure to invest in public services to keep up. That is a huge problem. And I'm not necessarily arguing for the absolute scale of migration that we've had. What I would say is, if you're thinking about this ICE thing for a minute, Two things. Number one, the lack of originality in reform policy making is becoming very clear. All they do is they look at...
It may not be that original, but they're looking to America and they're looking at something that many of their supporters think has worked.
Okay, so the point I was going to make is that they look at the Trump administration, they say ICE will have that, Doge will have that. Let's do Doge for 10 seconds. Doge basically failed in the United States. I mean, they did cut some spending, but on nowhere even remotely near the scale they promised. It was like 5%. Pathetic attempt. Elon Musk, get back to doing what you're good at, which is being an amazing innovator and running businesses. They then implement that in local councils. Failure. Now let's talk about ICE. ICE has been successful on one metric. Now, I'm sure that a lot of talk listeners will say, well, that's the only metric I care about, and that's their view. It has been successful on the metric that has massively cut the number of illegal migrants coming into the United States. Cannot deny that. My view, talk listeners will disagree, is that the price that has been paid for that is a level of immorality that is totally unacceptable. Separating families at the borders, putting people in cages, apprehending people in supermarkets. I don't want to live in a Britain like that. Other people might. I think they're disgusting and disgraceful, but that's their view.
Andy Williams, thank you. What do you think about what Andy has just said? Give me your thoughts on that. Use the break, pick up the phone, let me know. 0344 499 1000. We'll take calls after the break. Stay with us here on Talk.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everyone who's been in touch. Lots of people talking about separating families at the border, about the Chagos deal, about Valdo Calacane as well. A really shocking story there as well. Let me just get the detail of that. I actually sent it to a friend earlier because I was so absolutely appalled by it. This was Valdo Calacane. Public inquiry heard that the mental health workers decided against sectioning Valdo Calacane after considering, as they put it, the overrepresentation of young black males in detention. The paranoid schizophrenic went on to kill 3 people in Nottingham in 2023. Appalling. Daryl in Blackburn says, ask Andy where I should book his flight to. Dawn in Chelmsford says, I totally agree with everything Andy Williams has just said. He did admit voting Labour, and at least we can hold him responsible for Starmer. Yep, Andy's a Labour supporter, no doubt about that. Margaret in Birmingham says, good evening, Peter. Welcome to the slot. Great speech by Zia Youssef. Powerful, passionate, everything we need to save this country. I wish him well, and we need reform in number 10 now. Let's speak to Deborah in South Yorkshire. You're very welcome to the programme, Deborah. What would you like to say this evening?
Hi, Peter. I just wanted to touch on what Andy's been saying in a wider context in terms of the benefits bill.
Yes.
My 97-year-old mother-in-law is currently in hospital, sort of what you would call bed blocking, because she's fell and broke her hip on Christmas Day.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Now, no, it's okay. She's now been told that she's been independent up until that point, living in her own home, and never claimed any benefits whatsoever. We're now in a situation where we're waiting for the authorities to find her a suitable place to go into assisted living.
So hold on a second. If she broke her hip on Christmas Day, has she been in hospital for, what, 8 weeks?
She's been in hospital since Christmas Day. She was then put into... Yeah, she's fat. She's elderly. She's 97.
Yes,
we know
of
that
course.
she's poorly.
So you need a care package now. You're waiting for... I've been in this situation in my family as well. You're waiting for a care package. You're waiting for social services to come in and say, how are we going to let this person live as independently as possible? How long have you been waiting for that, Deborah?
Well, she was originally in one hospital near where she was at her daughter's house on when she broke her hip. She went into one hospital. They then, once she'd got to a situation where she needed to be moved into a care situation, they got her a home nearer to us. She was then deemed not appropriate for that care package because it's more of a rehabilitation centre. She unfortunately fell again twice on her own trying to get up to go to the toilet. She's 97. She's very independent.
Yes.
She went to a hospital. She was she was on the floor when my partner found her. The ambulance, the care people couldn't move her because they needed the ambulance people. They took her to another hospital. She went in there, came back out, did it again, and she wasn't injured.
What an absolute nightmare! What an absolute nightmare for your family, Deborah. You have put that in a wider context. Just briefly, Deborah, because we're just coming up to the news.
Yeah.
What's your message here? What would you like to happen? What's your message to the government on this?
The whole welfare thing needs to be looked at, and the care of elderly people in particular is absolutely appalling. It's like the scene it's the end of the line, and they don't matter. She needs to be put in a situation where she's looked after comfortably. And yes, we might need case assistance from the state. She's still got her own home. We don't want that taken away from her family. She needs to be looked after. What could be her last couple of weeks, months, we don't know how long, but she's still stuck in hospital, waiting for a care home to say, yes, we will take her. And I just think it's absolutely appalling. And I'm not making it about any party politics or anything, but the welfare system needs to be looked at so that the money can go to these situations.
That is absolutely appalling, Deborah. Listen, thank you for that. And just a discussion, an example of modern Britain. More on Mandelson next.
across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Peter Mandelson's arrest. What next? We'll get reaction from a former Labour advisor in just a moment. We've had a Labour MP on too. We'll hear what a minister has said earlier about Peter Mandelson. She didn't seem too happy. Kemi Badenoch has been reacting too. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. We'll talk about the public inquiry, hearing that mental health workers decided against sectioning Valdo Calocane because of the overrepresentation of young black males in detention. We'll talk about reforms plans on home affairs and ICE agency for the UK and their plans to deport 288,000 people. We'll talk about the anti-Semitism alleged against, a columnist, Yasmin Alibi-Brown. Lots to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. All this week, well, Monday to Thursday anyway, I'm here in this slot between 7 and 10. So much to discuss, and I want to discuss it with you. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice note. You can send me a WhatsApp text message, or you can give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss. A big, dramatic, newsy evening here on Talk. And just before we get into Mandelson, I just want to read a message I've received about this public inquiry, hearing that the mental health workers decided against sectioning Valdo Calocane after considering the overrepresentation of young black males in detention. That was the reason they didn't section him, because young black males were overrepresented. He went on, as a paranoid schizophrenic, to kill 3 people in Nottingham in 2023. Mary in County Down says, again, innocent people suffer because the authorities responsible for keeping us safe put woke equality concerns ahead of public safety. Girls raped and trafficked by grooming gangs, the Stockport terrorist killer, and now Calocane. All offenders free to rape, abuse, attack and kill because police, council, social workers and health professionals are scared of being branded racist, and we're more concerned with ticking boxes. A serious mental health patient with a high risk of violent offending should be regarded as raceless and colourless to the authorities. So that is Valdo Calocane and the disgraceful decision not to section him because of what social workers thought was the overrepresentation of young black males in detention. That's one story we're talking about tonight. But the big story, of course, the breaking news earlier on today, that Peter Mandelson, the former business secretary, the former ambassador to the United States, arrested. Lots of reaction to this, including from the government minister Jackie Smith. This is what she told Sky News a little bit earlier on today.
Yeah, but as Mel Stride was just saying, these are images which will not go down well in Downing Street at all. More problems for Keir Starmer, because it does reflect on Keir Starmer's decision to appoint him as ambassador to Washington in the first place.
Well, of course, as soon as Keir Starmer understood what the reality of Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein was, he sacked him in the middle of the night, actually. So, I think that's an important area of judgment. But, yeah, of course, to be frank.
Kemi Badenoch, also speaking to Sky News, gave her reaction.
This is the defining moment of Keir Starmer's premiership. Watching the man who he appointed to the highest position in our diplomatic service getting arrested by police, I think is an image that's going to stay with all of us for many, many years to come. And when people think about Keir Starmer and his premiership, they will see the arrest of Peter Mandelson as the defining moment. I think that the fact that I asked him if he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson just a few months ago, and he said yes, despite all of these allegations being known, only to see the man arrested shows that the Prime Minister has a terrible judgment. He's weak. He could have done more. He has not released the information around the files. Instead, he sacked the person who was supposed to be overseeing the release. I think that shows what kind of person the Prime Minister is.
Kemi Badenoch there, the leader of the opposition. Lots of reaction to this. We'll take plenty of your calls, text, tweets and voice notes as the show goes on between now and 10 o'clock. But I want to speak to the former Labour advisor, Matthew Torbett, on this. Matthew is with me now. Matthew, is this the defining moment of Keir Starmer's premiership, in Kemi Badenoch's words, do you think?
No, I think Kemi Badenoch's obviously grasping for something to sort of seem relevant for.
She doesn't need to grasp far, does she? It is highly embarrassing.
Ultimately, it's embarrassing. Would it be his defining moment? I'd say defining moment was probably Winter Fuel. It's been terminal ever since then. I don't think that Mandelson being arrested, particularly on this count, I think it'd be slightly unfair to Keir Starmer. I think, look, should he have appointed him in the first place when he was dodgy? No, all of us sort of knew this. Many of us within the Labour Party knew this. And I think I never quite bought this idea that he's the Prince of Darkness and this shrewd operator. I always remember thinking, well, he seems to get caught for everything, so it can't be that good.
Not that shrewd.
No, quite. So I don't think it'd be the defining moment. I don't think it's ideal with a by-election on Thursday to remind people of his poor judgment and appointing him in the first place. But ultimately, it was the Epstein stuff, or the supposed rumoured Epstein stuff, that has brought down Peter Mandelson from being the British ambassador to the US. I think to sort of predict that he may have done what is alleged by the police and others with regards to misconduct in public office would be slightly unfair. Really, it's down to judgment. I get that, but I think, even those that dislike Peter Mandelson the most in the Labour Party, don't think he was capable of this.
So was there genuine shock, do you think, with the Labour people you've been talking to? Because we knew he was a liar, we knew he was venal, we knew that he was someone who was a master of the dark arts, or at least someone behind the scenes who could do things to keep things out of the public domain, to be the Trump whisperer, and to some degree, perhaps, that's why he was appointed in the first place, because he could go toe-to-toe with a wily operator like President Trump. But to sort of say, oh, look, the liar lied to me, oh, I'm really shocked, a lot of people will find that quite hard to stomach from Keir Starmer, especially as he is someone who said he'd clean up politics.
No, I think that's where, I have a very, very sort of lack of sympathy there, because if someone who's made a career out of lying has found to have lied to you and you've took him at your word, I think actually Kemi Badenoch was more right when she said he must be the most naive former DPP in history, because, anyone with a brain would tell you Peter Mandelson was very much like this, or maybe capable of this sort of stuff. I think... Yeah, no. I think Badenoch's probably right on that point. I'll give her that.
Okay. What do you think happens now? Obviously, the criminal process will continue. He hasn't been charged with anything. He hasn't been sent for trial on anything. We know that Peter Mandelson denies any wrongdoing. What about politically? What about the pressures on Keir Starmer, possible impact on the Labour vote in Denton, on Gorton and Denton on Thursday? We're talking about how this feels to people who may not know every single jot and tittle of what has gone on, every single piece of information, but they'll know how it looks and they'll know how it feels, Matthew, won't they?
It feels like an establishment lording it over you, and your life isn't getting any better, and this has been going on for many years now. And I think that's the biggest shock I've had of all this is, first of all, with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor late last week and now this week, I've sort of always felt sort of insulated by the fact that global elites since the beginning of time appear to have had a different set of rules from the rest of us, and we've had to sort of, we do as we're told, and people certainly in certain circles seem to get away with all sorts. And you'll know yourself from reports this week that the misconduct in public office being a sort of a form of common law, it's quite hard to pin people down on. I think that's quite a dangerous thing, because if there is evidence to show misconduct in public office of either of the aforementioned, and they don't get charged, or there's they walk away from this, people are going to feel quite shortchanged at the fact that people are walking away into their lives. And listen, don't get me wrong, I think Peter Mandelson is damaged by this and will not come back. His company's gone into administration and other things, but I suppose if you're looking at things in the by-election on Thursday and you feel a bit burnt by Labour after maybe lending them your vote, and you're going, well, I don't really want reform to get in, though, I don't know what to do. And then this is sort of a reminder again of, do you know what? it feels all very broken to me, and maybe I need to look elsewhere. And I think that's maybe why we see it as a real three-horse race, it seems. From anyone I've spoken to, nobody can seem to call it, between the Greens, Reform and Labour. And I'm sure Thursday will be an eventful night either way.
And very interesting to see how the Conservatives and Lib Dems do as well. Neither of them appear to have much of a hope there. When we get to Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday as well, the day before the Gorton and Denton by-election, if you were Kemi Batenog, what would you ask?
Who's he got full confidence in now? Does he have full confidence in himself?
I really don't want Keir Starmer to say that he has full confidence in me. I'm quite worried. It just they seem to sort of, that's the kiss of death, really, isn't it, for your career?
Yeah, and I think also it speaks to this maybe it's the 24 hours news cycle. It was the same with Boris Johnson, this just survived today syndrome, and say what you think you've got to say to get through that day and worry about what you've said the day before tomorrow. And if you've got to change your mind and U-turn, you'll do that. There's almost a lack of shame, or certainly strategic nous, if I was to be sort of polite. But yeah, no, I'd ask if he's got full confidence in himself and the fact whether he can command a majority. His backbenchers have got it out for him.
Yes.
Every weekend we're asking if he's going to sack Wes Streeting, as if it really matters. And really, does he believe he's on borrowed time?
Do you not think if Keir Starmer sacked Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, that would perhaps assert his authority, especially when there are all sorts of problems for him? Josh Simons as well, the Cabinet Office Minister, now subject to an ethics probe.
No, I said last week Josh Simons will end up on the hook with this. I'm sure he's got the Prime Minister's full confidence, and he'll probably go in the next few weeks. I'm sure that'll be the case once the propriety and ethics teams have gone through it. He could sack Wes Streeting. Does it really matter? I think this is the dangerous game you play. Is Wes Streeting more dangerous on the backbenches, where he really doesn't have to follow the party line and sort of can go for Keir Starmer ever more? I think it doesn't matter in the long run. Come May, he'll be gone. And ultimately, it won't matter any of this. It'll just be a footnote in history.
Kevin Gateshead has been in touch, Matthew, and says, I like Matthew, but he should be arrested for that shirt, life behind bars. What do you think?
I can't argue with that whatsoever. You've caught me off guard at home last minute. And,
relaxing.
As I sat down, I thought, oh no, have I got time to change now? I've just remembered what I'm wearing. And I didn't. Sorry about that.
Are you wearing a carpet from 1989? That's my question.
I'm trying to stay down with the kids, and having said down with the kids, I'm definitely not now. So
yeah,
that's
they were kids. They're now pensioners. Matthew, thank you very much. Matthew Torbitt, former Labour advisor, wearing a very questionable shirt. If you haven't seen it, I would go on YouTube and have a look. You can, of course, watch us there on your connected device, as well as listening on your DAB Plus radio or your smart speaker. Another commentator we had on earlier, Labour leaning as well, Andy Williams, has not proved popular with Keith from Huddersfield, who's on the line now. Keith, you're very welcome to the programme. Thanks for ringing 0344 499 1000. What would you like to say?
Right, Peter. Your programme is something I watch regular. I have a lot of respect for you.
Thank you.
I'm afraid every time you have that bloke on, Andy Williams, right, is a disgrace. He attacks everything that we want, right, and I'm coming from a position where I voted Labour nearly all my working life, and he's one of the reasons people like him that I stopped voting Labour for. He's arrogant, as far as I'm concerned. He's always willing to attack. He's on about the party now, which I'm going to support, Reform, right? We've got the same problem with the Labour Party now. They went into government with no experience, right? And we've seen what they've done with it, yet he's quite willing to attack Reform because they don't have any experience.
Is he not entitled to his opinion just as you are, Keith?
I'm entitled to my opinion, but he's on a programme that's blurting out to hundreds of people every day, right? And we can do without that in this country. We've got three idiots at the moment on the right. You've got, what is it, Ben? Is it? They're like children, having a go at one another.
Okay.
Don't they realise that they should be trying to help all these millions of people in this country, and all they can do is have a go at one another.
Do you like what Zia Youssef has been saying today, what Reform UK has been saying? Is that something...
I don't like all of it.
Okay, what do you like and what do you not like?
I think we need to get a grips with migration, right?
Okay.
I don't believe that people... I was brought up in an era where a lot of West Indian lads working with me at mills, and they were fantastic workers. When I went out with them when I was a young lad at 15, they'd be in the 20s. They looked after you, right? When we went somewhere, right?
So you're not anti-immigration on that basis, then?
I'm quite happy. That generation worked every hour they could. I worked with them at where I worked at Sykes's. They were fantastic lads, but unfortunately, 2-3 generations down the line, they're all walking around because of people like that Williams with Labour. They've got a chip on the shoulder, a lot of them.
Okay.
Right. When I left school with no education, nothing. First job I had was on a chicken farm, and my mother took me to work the first day. She went with me on the bus, right? And I worked my way up. I worked my way to secretary of a union.
And do you think Reform get that? Do you think Reform understand the value of hard work?
We don't know till they get in, do we? That's what I'm trying to say.
You can make a judgment on them now, though, Keith, can't you? Listen, thanks for your call. I really appreciate it. That was Keith in Huddersfield there. This Valdo Callocane story about his release, very, very interesting to hear about it. This absolutely horrible man who was, we know, because the inquiry has been told today that the public inquiry hearing that mental health workers decided against sectioning the paranoid schizophrenic who went on to kill 3 people in Nottingham in 2023 because they consider the overrepresentation of young black males in detention. They thought there are too many young black males in detention. Therefore, because of those statistics, we're not going to make a decision based on the facts. We're going to base it on percentages. Margaret is in Merseyside and has some thoughts on this. Margaret, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you. Yeah, well, you've just summarised the case very well. I think it's incredible that somebody should be let out into the community who has actually now killed two young people and another elderly gentleman because of the unbelievable mistake, arrogance by mental health people who made that decision on totally the wrong basis. Why are they letting people into the community who can't look after themselves properly? He should have been under supervision. I believe he didn't even take his medication. Are these people who are responsible for this decision, are they guilty? Are they ashamed? Because I think they should be held at least as much guilty as this man who murdered those children.
It was actually Martin Luther King who said that he wanted his children to be judged not by the colour of their skin, but by the content of their character. Now, he, of course, meant that in a positive way, praising his children. But if you look at the content of Valdo Callocane's character, he was a nasty, violent person, paranoid schizophrenic, who should have been sectioned. That's absolutely clear. You know that. I know that, Margaret. But instead, he was judged simply by the colour of his skin. That's just totally wrong.
Yeah, but I mean, what kind of responsibility does that place on the shoulders of people who apparently haven't got the moral fibre to do it?
Yeah.
They should have no business doing that, regardless of what colour of his skin, whether he was a nasty person or not. The man must have been insane, and he should have been in the right place, which was under supervision in a mental hospital and not allowed to wander around the streets. I would just love those people who were responsible for this decision to be held accountable.
Yeah. And you know and I know this public inquiry is going to come out and say, oh, lessons must be learned, the system didn't work. Well, you know and I know, Margaret, the people are the system. The people are the system, and people should be sacked because of this if they haven't already. Margaret,
nothing just sacked. I think they should go to jail for dereliction of duty.
Yeah, a number of people agree with you. Margaret, you give me a ring anytime. I really appreciate the call from Margaret there in Merseyside. John in Long Lawford says, with regard to the Nottingham killings and Valdo Callocane, I think letting someone out you know to be extremely dangerous because of sensitivities about ethnicity leads me to wonder if whoever was responsible is an accessory to involuntary manslaughter. Very interesting there from John. And thank you to another person who says the families of the victims of the killer Callocane should sue the government given the ridiculous feeling of not sectioning him because of his race. Utterly heartbreaking. It's disgusting, but equally not surprising. Lots of other things on people coming in about Mandelson as well, and indeed Andy Williams. Phil says, get that Labour sympathiser Andy Williams away to have a cold shower. We need the population down significantly to ease the pressure on public services. It is not complicated. Lots more to discuss on this after the break. We're going to be speaking to Catherine MacLeod, Baroness MacLeod. She was in the room when Alistair Darling, her old boss as Chancellor of the Exchequer, was having those meetings with Peter Mandelson, which he then apparently was leaking to Jeffrey Epstein. We'll talk to her in just a minute here on Talk. Stay with us.
breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Mr. Mandarin, how long do you think that you can stay on the island?
We're going to stay forever. Our rights have to be respected now. We're going to stay.
Do you expect Jeremy Clarkson to become a part of your new party?
I can tell you, if Jeremy Clarkson decided to darken my doorstep, I would be absolutely delighted.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you very much indeed to everybody who's been in touch, including Leslie, who says these professionals on Valdo Callocane must lose their jobs and pensions, and hopefully will be a warning to others who have these silly woke ideas. People on the streets don't believe for 1 minute, says Angela, that Starmer was gullible enough to take in Mandelson. Most believe he knew exactly who Mandelson was. Lots to discuss on all of these stories, both Valdo Callocane and Peter Mandelson, who has been sensationally but perhaps unexpectedly arrested a little bit earlier on today. Baroness MacLeod is with me now, Catherine MacLeod. Now, Catherine was a special advisor to Alistair Darling. Catherine, very good to have you on the programme this evening. When you were working with Alistair Darling, when you were in those meetings trying to sort out the financial crisis that he as Chancellor tried so hard to get this country out of, Peter Mandelson was around as Business Secretary. Did you ever imagine at that moment that you would see a spectacle like today?
Absolutely not. It's terrible. It was, I mean, most awful breach of trust and the betrayal of the Prime Minister, of Alistair, of his government, of people that have known him for a long time. And I listened to your viewers' comments. I don't believe for one single minute that Keir Starmer knew what Peter Mandelson had been doing. I don't think that Gordon Brown, who actually took him back from Europe to give him a job, had any idea, and Alistair Darling certainly didn't. I think that Keir Starmer knew it was probably a gamble, but Peter was very, very experienced. It was the same reason that Gordon took him back into government. He knew his way around Europe. We were living in very difficult times. And perhaps, I mean, it's something that perhaps Keir Starmer couldn't see, but they needed somebody that was going to be able to handle Donald Trump, who is not by any manner of means a conventional politician, and perhaps who thought the benefits outweighed the negatives. But even that, I don't think within these negatives that Keir Starmer or anybody else ever suspected what Peter Mandelson was doing.
If you had been advising Keir Starmer, would you have advised him to appoint Peter Mandelson?
Well, I knew you would have known it was a risk. It was, I mean, I wasn't in Peter Mandelson's inner circle, but he had been an effective politician. He'd been a European Trade Commissioner. He had been involved in very tricky negotiations. So I can understand why he was appointed. I can understand why Gordon Brown brought him back with very precarious times. But Peter probably wasn't my cup of tea, and I certainly wouldn't have been his. So I don't know. It's easy to be wise after the event or sitting on the outside.
I'm sure
I understand why Starmer did it.
I'm sure you've thought back on those meetings at various times. I'm sure you've thought back on the phone calls and the conference calls you were on and all the different decisions that you were making during that time, working incredibly long hours, as I know most special advisors do, certainly in the Treasury, to try to get the country out of the hole that the world was in, really, in that banking crisis. I just wonder, presumably you've thought back and re-evaluated, perhaps looked at some of those emails and thought, gosh, I remember that meeting, and then literally 5 or 10 minutes later, Peter Mandelson was apparently leaking details of it to Jeffrey Epstein. Has that changed your view of that time?
I don't think it was even minutes later. I think, you know, it was sort of seconds. He was leaving meetings. At the time, it was very fraught. There were very difficult meetings, as you know. I think that nobody in the room, Alistair Darling or Gordon Brown, would have ever have thought that he was leaving these meetings to tell the people that were trying to undermine the government what had happened at these meetings. I do remember people like Jamie Dimon, the investment bankers, getting on the phone to Alistair because they hated the banker's bonus, even though that it was the government that had, you know, got them out of trouble. And
he was the head of Barclays, wasn't he?
He was the head of Barclays, and he was very, very irate. And then it showed in these emails that Peter Mandelson had been advising him to mildly threaten the Chancellor. Well, he did threaten the Chancellor. He said that the US wouldn't invest in Britain anymore. Alistair said, "Don't believe you because it's a good deal." He said that they wouldn't extend JP Morgan's headquarters. That didn't happen either. So I think that they were playing a very aggressive game with Alistair Darling, but he was up to them, and I don't think it would have crossed his mind that one of his colleagues had been winding them up to say, threaten the Chancellor, and you know, you might get somewhere. Alistair Darling was made of tough stuff. I mean, he was a courteous, man, honest man who had a great deal of integrity, but he could see quite a lot of people off.
He sadly is no longer with us, and I know you, like me, you with Alistair Darling and me with the Minister I work most closely with, James Brokenshire, I imagine, anyway, I don't know, but I imagine you feel a great sense of responsibility for their legacy, as I do with James, and I'm sure you do with Alistair Darling. I just wonder what you think he would have made of this.
He would have been absolutely horrified. I mean, it is so incredible, and it beggars belief that one of your colleagues, this was a cabinet, this was kind of state secrets. I mean, it would have been bad enough if it had been happening in the school playground and amongst our colleagues that they were letting you down. Alistair would have been absolutely horrified. In terms of protecting Alistair's legacy, I mean, I started to speak about Peter Mandelson when these emails came out, really just to say that, to say how horrified Alistair would have been. He was a team player. He respected the House of Commons. He respected his colleagues, and just would not have expected to have been treated like that.
What do you make of Gordon Brown and what he has done in the last while, and some of our viewers and listeners suggesting that he should have acted sooner? We know that Gordon Brown, of course, was kind of a voice in the wilderness actually about 6 months ago, trying to get a Cabinet Office inquiry into this, and that appears to have been resisted.
Well, I don't know about that. I think Gordon will be, Gordon did bring him back, and now Gordon is very apologetic. And I just, however hard it was for Gordon, I know that, Gordon Brown well enough to know that he wouldn't have considered bringing him back if he'd known there was any of that seedy, horrible behaviour in the background. It's just not the man he is. And I don't actually know, this is not a party point of view. I just don't know that there's many senior politicians that would have considered it, because that is not the way they behave.
We know, obviously, Peter Mandelson is being questioned at this exact moment. I wouldn't be surprised, given the hour that he was arrested, that he spends the night in the cells at the police station tonight. I just wonder, politically, within your party, within the Labour Party, you've been made a member of the House of Lords recently, and congratulations on that. I just wonder what you think happens in your party, because I'm sure many parliamentarians you've been speaking to are as shocked and angry and feel as betrayed as you do, Catherine.
I think they are shocked and angry. I think that actually there's so many new politicians that new Labour politicians, most of them actually wouldn't have encountered Peter Mandelson. There's kind of a mythical status around Peter Mandelson. He was sacked twice from Tony Blair's government. He came back. He became the European Commissioner. He went to America. So I think that these people, that sort of a lot of the MPs, will be horrified that one of their colleagues could do that, but they wouldn't have had a personal responsibility with them. There'll be some people in the cabinet, Yvette Cooper, Pat McFadden, they'll probably be about the only two, perhaps I'm forgetting some others, that would have known him in government.
I think perhaps Lammy might have been around at that time as well, but yes, you're right, there won't have been many who've been there to that extent. With Keir Starmer, does this, presumably this weakens his position? Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday is going to be a very, very tough one for him, isn't it?
Well, I think every Prime Minister's questions has been a tough one. I think perhaps the Mandelson, once the King's brother was arrested, I think nobody will be surprised that Peter Mandelson was arrested. So I don't know how much mileage that there is for the opposition. Keir Starmer is horrified. Justice has been, seen to be done. I think there'll be very little. It will be quite difficult now that he has been arrested for anybody to make political capital out of it, because, there's so much that you can and can't say now.
Yeah. Although he hasn't been charged so far, and of course, just to reiterate, he denies he's done anything wrong. Yeah.
So I think perhaps there will be, also, I don't know, you will know better than me because you're sitting where you are. I think there might be sort of public, they'll be thinking this is what happens, we've got to move on. They've made up their mind about Peter Mandelson, and perhaps they're so disgusted they don't want to hear anymore. I don't know. Certainly
with Andrew, it's fascinating when I do these programmes, because probably more so than more conventional programmes in more sort of mainstream outlets, when people don't want to talk about something, it affects our running order. And it was fun. It was very telling, actually. On Saturday, a lot of people really made it clear they'd had enough of Andrew. So I wonder when that point will come with Mandelson. But for the moment, plenty of people getting in touch. Catherine, appreciate your joining us this evening. Baroness MacLeod there, Catherine MacLeod, who was Special Advisor to Alistair Darling. She's recently been made a member of the House of Lords. We're going to talk about reforms deportation policies. We're going to talk to Kent County Council leader Lyndon Kemcaran for Reform UK in just a minute. Lots of people getting in touch about Peter Mandelson as well. Sacked for letting him out because of it. We're talking about Vado Callacane, that was specifically. But in regard to Peter Mandelson, and indeed Andy Williams as well, lots of people getting in touch. Elizabeth says, evening Peter, Andy Williams says he doesn't want to live in a country that rounds up and deports illegal migrants, yet he's happy to live with them committing crimes against our women and children. Well, I mean, Andy is not happy for that, and he didn't say that. Joanna in Salisbury says, hi Cardi P, it's my birthday. Many, many happy returns, Joanna in Salisbury, and I've had enough of screw-up governments. All UK people are going without something. If it's retiring later and later, hospitals, low pay, or fear of what migrants are going to do next, all because there are too many people that don't belong here and aren't contributing. It's not what I paid in for 49 years. I want a future for my grandchildren without fear. What on earth did Tony Blair start? He even saddled us with Mandelson. Let Farage have a go at sorting it out before there is nothing left. Well, we'll look into what Mandelson, more on Mandelson, but we'll look into exactly what Nigel Farage would do, and Zia Youssef, who would become Home Secretary under a Reform UK government. Plenty to discuss on all of that, and plenty of time between now and 10 o'clock to get your voice on the air. Give me a ring, 0344 499 1000, or send me a voice note on that number too. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Lots on Vado Callacane, the paranoid schizophrenic killer of 3 people who was not sectioned because there were too many, as the social workers believed, people already in mental health facilities. Absolutely ridiculous. Regarding Valdo Callacane, Kevin's been in touch. I seem to remember that guy had no legal status to stay in this country. Surely it wasn't a failure again of deportation policies across many years. There were many, many, many failures, and that's just one of them, Kevin. Terence in Lancashire says, sacked for letting him out because of his skin colour? You're joking. The people responsible should be charged with 3 counts of manslaughter. Not just the minions, but the chain of command all the way to the top that allow this travesty because of ideology, says Terence. Well, thank you for that. Keep your comments coming in. You can text me 87222. You can send me a voice note 0344 499 1000. Jason in the Lake District has been in touch and says, Andy Williams, earlier on, Andy was with us about an hour ago, showing peak Farage derangement syndrome, his party on literally making everything worse on last year, the feckless and the work shy, says Jason in the Lake District. We're going to talk in just a second about what Reform UK are doing, but first I just want to tell you what Nigel Farage and indeed Zia Youssef, who would be Home Secretary under a Reform government, are saying in all of this. Nigel Farage first on Starmer's performance on illegal boat crossings.
There is overwhelming public support for stopping the boats. But what do we get? We get failed Rwanda schemes, we get judges in Strasbourg stopping aeroplanes taking off, and actually we've had every single Prime Minister since David Cameron saying very clearly, if you come into this country illegally, you will be removed. None of them have meant it. Most farcical of all, of course, is the current Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, with his smash the gangs concept, which of course has been a total failure, and now under his premiership, more people across the Channel than under any other Prime Minister.
Nigel Farage there speaking at Dover earlier. Zia Youssef, who is their Home Affairs spokesman for Reform UK, he had this to say on deportations.
The damage done to our great country by open borders and a succession of cowardly Tory and Labour governments is profound. The scars on our country are real. But I promise you, they are not irreversible. We can and will secure our borders and end the invasion. We will rebuild the high-trust society we once took for granted. We will take back our streets from the gangs and the prolific offenders. And we will revive the ultimate sovereignty of our Parliament. We'll discard the foreign laws that protect the wicked at the expense of the innocent.
Zia Youssef also spoke about welfare, how it should be reformed, how it should be, in his view, exclusive to British people. This is what Zia Youssef said on this today.
The British welfare state should be available exclusively for the British people. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a slap in the face to every working man and woman in this country. The British taxpayers have been forced to spend £15 billion on universal credit welfare payments to foreign households in the last 18 months alone. Think of the state-of-the-art hospitals that money could build, the thousands of police officers it could put on our streets, the tax cuts it could deliver to struggling British families. We will stop this hemorrhage of national wealth. A Reform government will terminate welfare payments to foreign nationals.
Zia Youssef there speaking earlier in Dover on the patch of Lyndon Kemcaran. Councillor Lyndon Kemcaran is the leader of Kent County Council and the councillor herself in Maidstone South East for Reform UK. Lyndon, good to talk to you again. I don't think I'll ever quite get over that brilliant turn of phrase you had last time about people's previous politics. You said that people who had, expecting people who joined Reform UK to not have any previous politics or possible political affiliations is like expecting women not to be women to be virgins on their wedding night. I mean, that was just a brilliant turn of phrase. I expect there'll be some more coming up now. What do you make of what Zia Youssef is saying here, and especially how it would affect you in regard to, for example, an ICE unit deporting 300,000 illegal migrants per year, Lyndon?
Well, I was in the front row of that press conference this morning, and I was really glad that I made the effort to go all the way to Dover this morning to be there, because it was, well, what can I say? It was music to my ears. I mean, every Reform press conference is an event not to be missed now. They really are must-attend events. But this morning was particularly special because, as you say, it was in Kent, it was in Dover, and as you know, Kent and Dover is actually on the front line of this illegal migrant invasion. And I was very glad that Zia Youssef deliberately used that word invasion, and he gave the dictionary definition of what it means, because he is absolutely 100% correct. We are being invaded. Our borders are completely broken. I don't know about Keir Starmer's, smash the gangs. It's our borders that are smashed to smithereens, because day after day after day, when the weather is good and the seas are calm, we are getting hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of illegal, mostly men, who have no business being in our country. They are coming ashore, and this ridiculous government is making them very welcome.
How realistic is it, Lyndon, to deport 288,000 migrants per year? That is a heck of a lot of people. You're talking about having 5 deportation flights a year after withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights. I mean, even if you withdraw from the European Convention on Human Rights, there's a lot of case law, is there not? There's a lot baked in to the UK judicial and legal system that would challenge those kind of ideas. That's what happened with Rwanda. It wasn't just the ECHR, was it?
You're right, and several things need to happen. I mean, I think when Nigel Farage does get into number 10, and it is when and not if we are determined to make him Prime Minister, there is an awful lot of legislation to undo. Don't forget, we're going to have to unravel over 25 years of this terrible system that's tied us all up in knots.
Is that achievable in one term?
It's definitely achievable. How quickly it can happen, I don't know. I'm not an expert in undoing, 25 years of legislation, but I believe it can be done. Look, I'm an example of what can be done when you put your shoulder to the wheel and you have the, I don't want to say balls of steel, but you really do. You have to have the grit to change large organisations. I'm doing it in Kent County Council.
But you're also raising council tax, Lyndon.
By 3.99%.
I mean, that's quite a lot.
1% less than what was going to happen if the Tories had remained in command.
But you didn't come into this role to put up council tax. You wanted council tax to go down or to be at zero.
It is going down. How is 3.99 not down?
That's a rise. That is a rise.
No.
People will pay, Lyndon, people will pay more council tax. People will pay more council tax as a result of your policies.
No, they are paying less than they would if the Tories were still in power.
It's still more than they're paying at the moment.
It is a fact. It is less than what was baked in to the Tory administration. But if you let me get back to the point I was trying to make, changing large bureaucratic organisations, it can be done. We are doing it in Kent County Council. We are an example of what can be done. We have pulled apart adult social care, which was taking 50% of our annual budget for 4% of the population. We have renegotiated contracts. We are facing down academies in Kent that think they can just put a bill in front of us and we'll pay up. We're not doing it anymore. It can be done. We're a small outlier compared to central government, but I can absolutely guarantee you saw Zia Youssef today. The man has a nerves of steel. Whatever he says he's going to do, he will absolutely do.
Well, another thing he said he's going to do is ban all face coverings in public, including the burqa. Again, how realistic is that? Every face covering will be banned in public. How on earth are you going to police that?
Well, look, you must have filled up your car with petrol unless you're one of these electric vehicle drivers.
Certainly I'm not.
Me neither. When you go to a petrol station, it says very clearly, no face coverings, no motorbike helmets. When you go into those petrol stations late at night when there's only one person on duty, you're not allowed to wear a face covering. We've grown up with that being a rule. It's security. And as Zia said today, the face recognition technology that is in place in large parts of London, large parts of the country, how on earth can that work if people are allowed to go around with their faces covered up? It's destroying trust in our society. It's a really important benchmark, I think. It is a mark of a cultural shift. It is saying this is how we live in this country. This is how we expect you to live if you decide to come and live and work here legally.
So would you ban the niqab, the thing that you can see the person's face but they're covering their head? Would you ban that, or just the face covering?
Well, no, obviously, because that's not a face covering, is it?
Okay.
A head covering.
Yeah. So head coverings are fine, face coverings are not fine?
Yes.
Okay. In regard to a British version of ICE, we've talked a bit about migration previously, but there'll be many people who feel very, very nervous about this. What would you say to them, especially given what has happened in America? Many people think that's a great thing that so many people have been deported, but are we going to live in the UK? Are we going to have ICE agents grabbing people from shopping centres, splitting up families at the border, the kind of things that people, not everyone, but a lot of people feel quite nervous about in regard to what has happened. We've also seen 2 people dying as a result of ICE agents killing them. Now, maybe that was justified. We don't know. Inquiries are going on into those. There are various different versions of events. But is that honestly the kind of example that you think this country should be following?
Well, look, there's a couple of differences to point out. We are not America. We don't carry guns in this country. What has happened in America is not ideal. I think they've made some mistakes, possibly in recruiting people too quickly and not having, proper rules set down of how these people should operate. When we do it in the UK, it will be very different. But the bottom line is, if you are here illegally under a reform government, you can expect to be detained and then deported. Okay. As simple as that.
Lyndon, thank you. Always good to talk to you. That's Councillor Lyndon Kemcaran, who is leader of Kent County Council. She was there today as Yusuf was talking about all of this in Dover. I want to thank Francis and Andy, who've sent some very, very nice things that I better not read out on the air, otherwise my head will explode, but very welcoming me to the slot. I think it's the first time I've done it. Maybe it isn't, but I'm pretty sure it's the first time I've done it in the evenings anyway. I think I've done every other slot filling in for various people, and I'm here all week, well, Monday to Thursday anyway, and then back with the weekend shows mid-morning, Saturday and Sunday. Lots to discuss tonight. We're going to have the journalist Nicole Lampert joining us in just a second, particularly about the Green Party, Israel condemning them as hateful and racist ahead of its vote on making it party policy to support Palestinian resistance. Also a very controversial tweet by Yasmin Alabai Brown, the columnist who has been accused of anti-Semitism, which I'm sure she would deny. Lots to discuss in just a moment. Stay with us.
I have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America.
That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong.
You know, the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean that they own the land. We're not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland. So we're going to be doing something with Greenland, either the nice way or the more difficult way.
Any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's talk now about the scourge of anti-Semitism in our society. Day after day after day, we have political leaders, this time the Green Party, who have been labelled hateful and racist by Israel ahead of their own vote within their party on making it party policy in the Green Party to support Palestinian resistance. Well, I know what resistance means. And in the general scheme of things, certainly under Hamas, it has not in any way been peaceful. Nicole Lampert is a journalist and campaigner against anti-Semitism who joins me now. We're going to talk to Nicole as well about Yasmin Alibi-Brown, the journalist, and what she's been tweeting. We'll talk about that in just a second. But first of all, Nicole, your reaction to what the Green Party is talking about. We know Carla Denyer, who won't come on my show, we've asked her a number of times, one of the MPs for the Green Party, absolutely actively encouraging people to go and knock those doors and go on that Jew hunt, as it was labelled in various parts of Brighton and Bristol as well.
Well, Peter, I know that you know what Palestinian resistance looks like. You and I have both been to the site of the Nova Festival and some of those kibbutzim in the south.
Yes.
Where hundreds were slaughtered, young people, children, deliberately slaughtered, not because they were any sort of military people. They were people, families in their homes. That's what Palestinian resistance looks like, and that's what the Greens want to push forward as a policy under the same policy in which they, under the name Zionism is Racism. So just to give a bit of context to Zionism is Racism, it was a libel spread by the USSR in 1975. It was passed by the UN, and for 20 odd years it then made life hell for Jews around the world. And I remember my first year at university, they tried to ban the Jewish Society, saying we're Zionists, so therefore we are racist. And that's the kind of thing that it pushes. And this is particularly worrying because the Greens, they are seen by lots of people as cosy. They're an alternative to Labour. People are obviously unhappy with Labour. They may be frightened of reform. So they think, let's go for the cosy Greens. The Greens are no longer cosy. They don't seem to care about the environment. They are pro-drugs and they are pro the genocide of the Jews, because that's essentially what this is calling for. They're calling for the dissolution of Israel, and they're saying it should be one state and a state that should belong to the Palestinians. So what that means for the 10 million Israelis, including 7 million Jewish Israelis, they cannot say, but they apart from it's fine to be violently resist them, which means they are a pro-genocide party now.
It is fascinating from the Green Party's perspective how they have changed over the years, this kind of red-green alliance that is happening. Also, Zionism in itself, I mean, I'm a Zionist. It's really straightforwardly, do you believe in a state of Israel or not? Yes. Do I agree with every single thing Benjamin Netanyahu has said and done? No, of course I don't. That would be crazy, and I'm not sure there are too many people who do, even in his own cabinet. So it is this blanket, very reductive way of simply saying, well, Zionism is racism and resistance to that is fine. Why do you think this is? Why do you think they've come to this conclusion? We know that there's a vote on making it party policy. It may not go through, but there are many people in the Green Party who do believe it should, Nicole.
Well, as you said, there's this kind of red-green alliance, or sometimes it's known as the red-black alliance, which is what it was in Iran. And we are now seeing the result of that. So in Iran in 1979, you had communists joining with Islamists to overthrow the Shah. And then the Islamists quite quickly got rid of the communists. And for the last 48 years, the Iranians have suffered more and more tyranny. You were just talking about head coverings. There, it's mandatory, and if they don't, then they are thrown into prison. So we are seeing that alliance happening in the Greens. Zach Polanski, who is their leader, who is a Jewish man, but an anti-Zionist Jew, and his own journey has been interesting. He started in the Greens, he was pro-Zionist, he was pushing the IHRA definition, which included the obsessive hatred towards Israel is itself anti-Semitic. And now, basically because I think he's ambitious, and they are desperately appealing to Muslim people who are angry about what's going on in Gaza, who feel that Labour have let them down, and they are pushing this and pushing this. They're pushing this anti-Zionist.
Okay. Just before you go, Nicole, I just want to talk about what one very well-known columnist has been tweeting. She has been widely condemned for this. This is Yasmin Alibi-Brown, who is a columnist who's written for lots of different national newspapers. And she says, Uber-Zionist Margaret Hodge will, we hear, become Ofcom chair after Uber-Zionist Michael Grade steps down. A two-step solution to ensure the Palestine and Palestinian suffering are denied proper coverage, and the Israeli state gets away with atrocities. Now, Michael Grade, of course, very, very well qualified chairman of Ofcom, and it doesn't seem that there has been any reduction or curbs on coverage of Israel-Palestine under his tenure. But Yasmin Al-Abrai-Brown suggesting that he's a Zionist and suggesting that Margaret Hodge, who would possibly take over from him, also be a Zionist. And I wonder what you make of this. It's been condemned by many people.
Yeah, it's straightforward anti-Semitism. We don't know. I don't know how much Zionist both of these people are. I just know that they are both Jewish. In fact, I've heard Margaret Hodge talking about how before Corbyn, she didn't even really think of herself as Jewish, even though her family had fled the Holocaust. I think the first time for many decades that she visited Israel was straight after October 7. And she's very critical of Benjamin Netanyahu.
And she was appallingly treated under Jeremy Corbyn's Labour Party. It was absolutely appalling.
Exactly. And you could almost say that anti-Zionism, anti-Semitism, Jew hatred kind of makes Zionists out of all of us Jews, separate to non-Jewish people who just believe that the state of Israel shouldn't be destroyed. But this is essentially, Yasmin Al-Abrai-Brown posits herself as an anti-racist. This is, for me, a straightforward anti-Semitic tweet, because she is not talking about their politics, she is talking about their religion. And I've tweeted myself, you could criticize Margaret Hodges being given that position, considering she doesn't really have a background in television or as a journalist, but criticize her on that term and not because of her ethnicity.
Yeah, I think those are very, very good points. Nicole, thank you. Nicole Lambert there, journalist and campaigner against anti-Semitism. I'm sure Yasmin Al-Abrai-Brown would deny that she is in any way anti-Semitic. The tweet is there. You can go and have a look. You can see some of the reaction online to that. And you can react yourself by giving us a ring on 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss in the next hour. We'll talk to Rupert Bell, our royal correspondent, about Andrew, about Peter Mandelson, about Prince William as well, and what he has been saying. Also about Andrew charging taxpayers, you and me, for massage services when he was a trade envoy. Outrageous. 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, it's just gone 9 o'clock. This is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company this Monday evening. I'm here right through the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, between 7 and 10. So much to discuss. Peter Mandelson's arrest, for example. Valdo Calocane not being sectioned. It's all coming out of the public inquiry now. We'll talk about the royals as well. Prince William saying he's not in a calm state at the moment. We'll also speak about EU immigration and migrants in Germany who must pay for an integration course now. Loads to discuss between now and 10. People want to talk about Labour, they want to talk about Epstein, Reform UK, their plans on home affairs and deporting, they say, 288,000 people a year. What do you think of all of this? 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me at 72222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can also send me a voice note, less than a minute please. You can send me a WhatsApp text message or give me a ring, all on the main number 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10 here on Talk. Thank you to Amy, who has tweeted me at Peter Cardwell to say it is shocking what has come out regarding Valdo Calocane. If it's clear that someone has serious mental health issues and being sectioned is the right thing to do, then it should be done. Race shouldn't come into any decision like that. This is the shocking, outrageous revelation that Valdo Calocane, who murdered 3 people in Nottingham, wasn't put into the proper mental health care, wasn't sectioned because of his race, because they thought there were too many young black males who had been sectioned. They looked at the statistics. They didn't look at the facts in regard to the individual. Absolutely outrageous. The police at the moment earlier on today are right now are questioning Peter Mandelson as well, the former business secretary, the former ambassador to the United States. We've been talking about that right throughout the evening since the moment of his arrest and when that was confirmed. This is a story that's going to dominate the papers tomorrow and the discussion, I'm sure, over the next few days. We know that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor was arrested on Thursday. He was released pending further investigation. With Peter Mandelson, both his homes in Regent's Park in London, very exclusive area of London, and Wiltshire as well. There were many, many searches done there, various things taken away. Now he's being questioned by police at a police station in London. I wouldn't be surprised if he is kept there overnight, given the length of the interrogation and the time that it usually takes. Andrew, we know, was kept for 11 hours. He was lifted early in the morning, well, 8 o'clock in the morning, and released at tea time. But it was tea time today that Peter Mandelson was arrested. Westminster, the country, reeling from this news. Graham Stringer, the Labour MP, has reacted to it, and this is what he told me a bit earlier this evening.
It makes the whole of the British establishment look seedy. I can't think of a better word than that. It goes into the monarchy, and clearly it goes to the heart of the Labour Party and the government and the Foreign Office. It is a bad look.
That was Graham Stringer, the Labour MP for Blakely, speaking to me a little bit earlier on. Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservatives, has been out and about talking about this today. She says it'll be a defining moment of Keir Starmer's premiership. I wonder if you agree with her, or actually will this just be something that happens and people move on from it? Of course, we know that a lot of the documentation will come out early next month. That's been announced today as well. This is what Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservative Party, said earlier on this evening to Sky News.
This is the defining moment of Keir Starmer's premiership. Watching the man who he appointed to the highest position in our diplomatic service getting arrested by police, I think is an image that's going to stay with all of us for many, many years to come. And when people think about Keir Starmer and his premiership, they will see the arrest of Peter Mandelson as the defining moment. I think that the fact that I asked him if he had full confidence in Peter Mandelson just a few months ago, and he said yes, despite all of these allegations being known, only to see the man arrested shows that the Prime Minister has a terrible judgment. He's weak. He could have done more. He has not released the information around the files. Instead, he sacked the person who was supposed to be overseeing the release. I think that shows what kind of person the Prime Minister is.
Well, really interesting to hear what so many people have been saying about this. Tad in Cambridge says that on the existential threat to the monarchy, talking about Andrew, obviously the Mandelson thing is related because they were both friends. Mandelson said the best pal of Jeffrey Epstein. Tad says, personally, I'm generally for a liberal democracy, but there's so many royals seemingly prepared to bring the institution into disrepute. A thought crossed my mind regarding an injudicious moment some years ago at a ski resort when Charles, then Prince of Wales, spoke to his 2 adolescent sons with an open mic, speaking of the press and the public as these bloody people. That gave the game away, typified the contempt which the rest of us are held by entitled people who are not fit to rule over us. Furthermore, the monarch's late wife's untimely demise being looked at all over again, says Tad. Very, very interesting. I think he was specifically talking about Nicholas Witchell, who was the royal correspondent of the BBC at that time. Let's speak to Rupert Bell, who's Talk's royal correspondent, about all of this. Rupert, good to talk to you today. Just a few days after Andrew Mountbatten Windsor lifted, continuing to be investigated, released under investigation, what essentially used to be called police bail. Now another dramatic arrest, this time of Peter Mandelson, related to Jeffrey Epstein. Again, 2 very senior figures in British society who have been arrested and questioned by police.
Yes, it's just another unedifying look. And obviously in my job as a royal commentator, you know, it all brings into question the Mandelson and Andrew relationship. When he was trade envoy, by all accounts, Mandelson encouraged Andrew to be promoted to that job. So it's a mess. And this is the problem for the monarchy. They are now embroiled in a major constitutional crisis, and they've got to somehow find a way of making sure the public don't lose faith in them, because every politician is coming out saying we've got to look at every institution, the cover-ups, the, you know, what's going on at the highest echelons of government. And, you know, Keir Starmer seems to be embroiled in all sorts of issues. And, you know, obviously Kemi Badenoch's come out and said what she said, but let's be honest, you know, they were been in government for 14 years. The whole thing is an unedifying mess, and Andrew and Mandelson are doing their best to basically make people feel even more disenfranchised from the political elite, because everything seems to be a bit of a quagmire.
Certainly is a quagmire, and a barrister I know has just got in touch to say they might just actually complete their searches, conduct a short interview and then release him under investigation tonight. They may also keep him in a private room and not put him in a cell. We don't know, but certainly the length of time that Andrew was kept and the complexity of this case would at least suggest, a speculation, but would suggest that Peter Mandelson won't be out tonight. It'll be very interesting to see what happens there. On Andrew himself, quiet over the last few days. We've heard very little from his brother, Charles. We had that extraordinary statement at the time, but Prince William at the BAFTAs last night saying he is not in a calm state. Front page of many of the papers today, including The Sun, Rupert.
Yes, but bearing in mind he's talked a lot about the mental issues that he's had to, you know, and he did an interview last week about mental health. I think it's quite hard because actually when you look at it, he's actually probably going to have to take the sort of trying to make sure the royal family, the monarchy, seems relevant to a future generation. It was interesting that he did that interview with, you know, Radio 1 and trying to engage with a younger generation. And this is the problem for the royal family. They cannot be seen at any stage now to be in any way covering up what may go on with Andrew. Because if they are, then they will lose the court of public opinion. And this is the real issue. And look, it is, I mean, last Thursday was a moment where you go, wow, it was a wow moment. And there's no two ways about it. But now the reality is striking home to the royal family. And yesterday we saw the Prince and Princess of Wales at the BAFTA awards, which is something they always go to. But you know, the sort of overarching sort of theme of it is, look, he's back out there after 3 days after his uncle was arrested and brought in for police questioning. So the whole thing is a major issue for the royal family. This is not going away, and you're hearing politicians today, you know, wanting, you know, sort of sensing blood, as it were, not necessarily with the monarchy, but maybe with Keir Starmer or other people. It is a real mess, and the political elite have got a real issue here in this country, and that includes the monarchy. But you feel for Prince William, who is trying to sort of fight the good fight, he would say, yet at the same time events are conspiring seriously against him.
I've asked what I think is a reasonably tough question of a number of royal commentators over the last few days, but I haven't had the chance to put it to you, Rupert. Do we need to reevaluate, when we ask who knew what when, the reputation and the role of Queen Elizabeth II?
I think there are issues, because she clearly protected her son in some extent, because there was this $12 million payment and it was a mess. I think we can actually now turn around and say, why did that happen?
Yeah.
And I do think there are question marks, but Andrew has always been convinced of his status, and always had a sense that he was, and has always had a sense that he, not necessarily above the law, but because he was a member
not the same as the little people.
No, correct. And look, and I've known him since I was 8. So I've seen him close up, and I know what he's like. And he's never doubted his belief that he was slightly better than all of us. He's also not necessarily the brightest tool in the box. So therefore, you put that together, and he is now doing what, by his actions, he's doing his level best to give the monarchy, the institution, the constitutional institution of the monarchy, which actually since 1066, if you put it into context, is 960 years as an institution, under more of a microscope than it probably has been since the times of when King Charles II, we had a Commonwealth, for Oliver Cromwell.
Yeah, I think
this is
yes, it's major.
The biggest. It's major because we are in a very difficult climate. People question everything, and the royal family must now be seen to be not actually doing everything right. And the king may have been back in the day loyal to his brother because he thought yes, but actually that loyalty might now come home to bite him. Now, I don't know, because if we end up in a court of law, how's that going to play out? Because the one thing the British public won't want is a sense that it's a establishment area covering up.
Yeah.
And the monarchy are equally have to look as if they are without fear or favour. And if Andrew goes before a court of law, nothing, the due process has to be done, wherever it takes them. Now, that's going to be very uncomfortable for the monarchy, and I will not pretend otherwise. I am a monarchist. I believe in the institution, because what I will always say is I'm not convinced what do we have?
The alternatives. And it'll be very interesting to see. I mean, people are still very pro the monarchy in this country. About 2/3 of people very much pro monarchy, according to one recent poll. Rupert, thank you. That is Talk's royal correspondent Rupert Bell there. Just to clarify, police bail isn't the same as release under investigation. My barrister friend is telling me the first police bail may include bail conditions and a bail date when they have to return to the station, whereas release under investigation, they will contact him if they need him to come back to the police station. So not a huge difference, but a difference nonetheless. I'm very happy to clarify that. If you hear me in a 3-hour show, not every single word that comes out of my mouth is going to be perfect and totally entirely precise. And if I do make any mistakes, I want people to tell me. I'm not one of those people who thinks I know everything. I certainly do not. I am learning every day, and that's one of the things I love about this job. I've learned a lot from the callers this evening. Here's another one. Laura Jane from Hampshire has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Laura Jane, what would you like to say? You're very welcome to the programme.
Good evening on this evening slot, Peter.
Thank you, yes.
So I'm concerned that we're not, that we're all being a bit naive in this Mandelson and Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor affair. We're looking at this from the point of view of their guilt. What worries me is it's not just that Mandelson said he didn't realise that that Starmer didn't realise that Peter Mandelson had lied. I think we need to look at this from the other point of view. What did Mandelson have on all these different politicians and all the bright stars that he helped lift up to the, and also what did Epstein have on Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor that made both these, all these players react in the way they did.
Well, it's interesting as well within that, just to add to your point, Laura Jane, it's interesting that Private Eye and various other publications as well reporting on the fact that Mandelson was instrumental in getting Andrew made the trade envoy as well. And just for to keep us both out of court, Laura Jane, I just want to reiterate, as I have been throughout the evening, that Peter Mandelson denies any criminality, denies any wrongdoing, as does Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor. But it's very interesting what you say there, Laura Jane, because there are many questions, and I mean, there are all sorts of theories that Jeffrey Epstein was a KGB asset, that this goes back years and years, that it was blackmailing people, that it was filming people with young girls and then blackmailing them as a result of this. We don't know the true extent of this, but it's like a film.
Well, we can say that the powers that be have been corrupt for many generations. We all know that things often go wrong at the top, but I do feel very strongly that the present government and the past one, who are guilty of this as well, have aided and abetted. But maybe, just maybe, and obviously I can't prove this, this is because somebody like Peter Mandelson may have had something on each one of the characters, right back to Brown and Tony Blair.
Although if you are, I mean, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. The point is, Laura Jane, if you're Keir Starmer and you've got your chief of staff saying, like, this is the guy, this is the man who can go toe-to-toe with Trump, get us a great trade deal. Yeah, he's been sacked a couple of times in the past, but look at his record. Look at these different jobs he has done as EU Trade Commissioner. He's been a cabinet minister a couple of times. He's someone who is very, very influential, who created New Labour. If you're Keir Starmer and you're weak politically, you're going to listen to those advisors and you're going to do what you say they should do, rather than saying, actually, no, hold on a second, this guy is a wrong un, don't want him anywhere near my administration.
No, that's exactly my point. You're missing the point. I do genuinely believe that all these people, Peter Mandelson had something on all these people.
But what's your evidence for that, Laura Jane?
None whatsoever, except old age.
Okay.
And I think that there is more to come out. We know there is. We know
there's so much more to come. In fact, even those documents, we know that about 3 million are in the public domain of the Epstein emails. There are about 11 million in total. So there's so much more. We're going to be talking about this for years, Laura Jane.
Yeah, but, I would, back from the grave, I will tell you, Peter, when you're as old as I am, that I was right.
You'll be back haunting me, Laura Jane.
I'll be haunting you, but I am absolutely convinced that there is much more to this than just the players that have been arrested without being charged at the moment, and we know that obviously and innocent until proven guilty, which I believe very strongly in. But nonetheless, I do believe that more people are involved in this than at the moment that we know about. And I feel that Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein knew exactly who to target. I really do.
Laura Jane, thank you for that contribution. I look forward to you haunting me from beyond the grave. Many people have said all sorts of things to me on the air. I don't think I've quite said that before, Laura Jane, but thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Let's speak to William in Lisburn in Northern Ireland, a city I know well. William, you're very welcome to the programme. What point would you like to make this evening?
How are you, Peter?
Fine, thank you. Yes. What would you like to say?
You and I went to school together. Maybe not quite at the same time.
Did we?
Portadown College,
no, that's where I went. My goodness, okay.
Yeah. Maybe you and I will understand this better than people in England, and I hope they do realise this. So an issue you touched on earlier, the sectarian politics that's going on over there. You and I know now, I'm ex-service, I am entitled to wear and George Cross represent certain colours.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen, probably you do remember as well, what happens when you have a bunch of people, to keep this simple, that say we're going to start shooting people, blowing things up.
Mm-hmm.
We'll go to England and do it there as well. Then we'll have a political party that thinks, yep, this is justified. Then you have another lot. They think it's the same thing. It's a good idea as well. We had it all. I have been for years of it. Maybe you saw some of it.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think the people in England realise if they let this sectarian nonsense, like those naive idiots in that Green Party, they think it's a good idea to start this. Do they realise the animal that they're letting loose in that country?
And where it ends. Yeah.
It will make Belfast look like a sideshow because you have the sectarianism on a scale we have a religion.
You're absolutely right, William, and I agree with every single word you say. And neither of us would want that again in any form in the United Kingdom.
Oh, diversity is our strength. I've heard that. That's okay if everybody's playing off the same rulebook. But I know, having seen lost colleagues and seen what's happened to other people, without going into the detail, it still affects me to this day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And there's so many people it affects to this day. And William, I'm sorry to hear that is the case for you.
No, because it's happened to people in England too, and they probably resented a lot of us over here for it. But we got the blame for all this.
But you're absolutely right, William. When you see what is happening to our society now, multiculturalism has failed. There've got to be common values. There've got to be British values that unite us. And if you're going to go around in the Green Party by saying that you agree with Palestinian resistance, well, that is going to give so many people a green light to say and do all sorts of things. All those people holding those placards in support of Hamas and Hezbollah, they'll be emboldened by that.
Many weary years of watching politicians looking for votes, and they're doing it in England. The Labour Party's doing it, others are doing it. They don't want to lose their big salary and their pension. They'll do it. Please, whoever, say whatever is needed to get re-elected. That's okay. What about your society?
Yeah.
That's great. What is the right thing to do? Are you going to condone people? I can't believe it. This Green crowd, I am not Jewish. I know nothing about it. I don't have nothing against the Palestinians. But to actively start going down the road of sectarian politics and the madness that we had in Northern Ireland, you're going to have trouble.
Well, it's a very, very wise warning, William, and thank you. And I think you're intimating there that you served in the RUC, and I want to thank you for that. William there in Lisburn in Northern Ireland, old boy of Portadown College, which is a great institution. And I was privileged actually to speak at their speech day, their prize day, a couple of years ago. It was absolutely lovely to go back and see some old faces. Some of the students were then parents of people I was speaking to. Thank you to William for that, and thank you to Matthew, who's been in touch, who says, I've never tuned in at this time before, but this is great. Have you got a new haircut, a new shirt for the occasion? Matthew, you're right, this is a new shirt, and I had my haircut earlier today, as I'm on not just tonight, but tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday as well in this slot, and then on Saturday and Sunday I'm back in the mid-morning slot as well. I'm having a day off on Wednesday. We're going to talk in just a second about something that's happening in Germany. Maybe it should happen in this country as well. Ralph Schulhammer, the political theorist, will be with us because migrants in Germany are going to be paying out of their own pockets for an integration course. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Talk. Stay with us.
nutshell, Mandarin. He's in his 70s. When he was 14 years old, he was forcibly removed from that island, dumped on the quayside. He had to live from food scraps out of bins. If it hadn't been for the Catholic Church, hundreds of them would probably have died. And you know what really gets me, Jeremy? This government is full of human rights lawyers. It's surrounded on the outside, too, by human rights lawyers. They bang on about this all the time. Well, what about the human rights of black Chagossians?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to the texter who says, how much more is this nation supposed to suffer? That is an anonymous text, but raises a very profound question. Whatever you want to say in the next half an hour, 0344 499 1000 is the way to do it. I want to talk about something that's happening in Germany now, but it could well come to this country. Maybe you think it should. Let me know your thoughts on it. The German government says public funding is no longer needed after a number of refugees entering the country drops. Migrants in Germany must pay for their own integration courses in the latest measure to get tougher on immigration. This is the Interior Ministry announcing asylum seekers, EU migrants and those in temporary stays must cover most of the £1,400 in fees themselves. An estimated 4 million migrants have taken integration courses over the past 20 years, and they've been considered key to helping foreigners to assimilate into German life. Well, there are citizenship tests certainly here in this country, but I don't think there are integration courses, and of course that's many problems that have arisen because there are not. Petra Martin, who's a lecturer on a German integration course, has said these courses are extremely important. Someone who doesn't speak German has no chance in this society. Why don't we have the same attitude here in the UK? You've got to speak English to get on. Petra continued, if people are not integrated and don't know, for example, what the minimum wage is in Germany, they will take the next underpaid job they can find and be kept down. Let's speak to Ralph Schulhammer, who's a political theorist on all of this. Ralph, you're very welcome to the programme. Germany seems to have the right idea. We know there have been many times that Germany has been criticised, particularly under Angela Merkel, for taking far too many migrants. I just wonder if you think this is a step in the right direction.
No, not at all. I mean, the intention might be noble, but I think the very idea itself is quite problematic. We have to be careful not to confuse integration courses with language courses. I fully agree with your previous statement. You can only integrate if you know the language. But the very idea, it's the same with the citizenship test, that you can become German or British or Austrian for that matter by taking a test or a course. I think it diminishes what it means to be part of a very specific nation. This is a process that has to run over years, over generations. And to be quite honest, you mentioned the number of people who did these courses, who ran through these courses. And I think the results when it comes to integration in Germany are abysmal. There is no test or course to learn a new culture.
Yes, and it's interesting actually when we turn to this country, because Reform UK, who you will know are leading the polls, are 24% in most recent poll, more than any other party. They're pledging, they say today, to restore Britain's Christian heritage, stopping churches being turned into mosques, deporting almost 300,000 illegal migrants every year. They also want to ban the burqa. That is something, those are policies that are a lot stronger than any other party here in the UK, certainly a mainstream party anyway. There's some very small parties that would have even stronger policies than that. I just wonder, when you hear that and when you see that and you see the direction a lot of the British public want to go in, Ralph, what your thoughts are.
Well, I have to admit, I think what you just mentioned regarding the Reform Party, I think this is just because they get a lot of pressure from the Restore Party. I mean, it's for a foreigner, the names can become a little bit confusing with, Reform, Restore, and I think there's also Advanced Britain, so it gets a little bit muddy.
Advanced UK, yeah, that's another one.
Advanced UK, it gets a little bit muddy, but I think this is the right direction to go, and I tip my hat. I know he gets a lot of criticism, but I think if Rupert Lowe is pushing Nigel Farage into the right direction, fantastic. In the end of the day, to quote Margaret Thatcher, it's not about having the right people in the right positions, but to create the conditions where the wrong people have to do the right thing. So if there is if basically Restore Britain holds the feet to the fire of reform, I'm all for that. But I think these are the right measures. We are in Western Europe, and I include the UK in this, we are in an existential struggle, and this is how many people feel, this is how I feel, and I think it is true. I think there is still time. It's 5 to 12, but not 5 past 12, to make a course correction. But of course, the longer we wait, the more radical this course correction has to be. So I'm glad that there finally is some movement.
There is so much today as well. I'm sure you've seen some of the news around Peter Mandelson, the former senior government minister, former ambassador to the United States, being arrested. Trust in politics is at such a low, isn't it? And that's the case not just here in the UK, but in so many different parts of Europe and around the world. Is there a way to get that back?
Well, I would say that people sometimes say in a derogatory way they talk about populism, but at the end of the day, I think this is what we need, not just because of the populism part, but because of the popular part. There is nothing wrong with having politicians that are actually popular among the population. I think there is this weird idea that, oh my God, politicians who speak the language of quote unquote the common people, this is so horrible. I don't think that this is the case. It's very, very important. The distance between those who rule and those who are being ruled has become so significant, so large in recent years, in so many Western, and I have to use the scare quotes now, democracies, that a change of the guard, a change of leadership is absolutely necessary. And there is, Peter Mandelson is a good example for this. There is this sense that there are rules that apply to the little people, and then there are rules that apply to the quote-unquote bigwigs, and they don't have to care at all, let's say, what the public perception of moral behavior is. So no, I think it is absolutely crucial that the current leadership all over Western Europe, they have to be replaced at the voting booth by peaceful means, but they have to go.
Ralph, very interesting to talk to you as always. Ralph Schulhammer, political theorist, thanks for your contribution this evening, and we're about to get your contribution at home. I'm going to take calls right up to 10 o'clock. I'm going to speak to Petri Hoskin, of course, what's coming up on her programme, but I want to talk to you, and now's the time. If there's something on the tip of your tongue, if you have thoughts on anything we've been talking about tonight, or things you think we should be talking about tonight and have maybe avoided, now's the time. Use the break, pick up the phone, make the call. 0344 499 1000. Lots to discuss between now and 10. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
0344 499 1000. That is the number you need for the next 23 minutes. We're going to take calls. We're going to briefly talk to Petri Hoskin as well about what's coming up on her programme between 10 and 1. So much to discuss about the news of the day. Let's speak to Tony in Bristol first. Tony, thanks for your call. What would you like to say?
Oh, thanks, Peter. Mandelson, to me, is far, far bigger a figure in British politics and British society than Andrew, actually. A much bigger figure. And
I think that's a very fair point.
I'm a traditional, I suppose you would call me someone that goes for the mixed economy, the public sector. I was brought up in the public sector, actually. My first jobs were, sort of, I suppose, not civil service exactly, but that sort of thing. And he, to me, is the person who has destroyed that. So we don't really have a public sector anymore. We don't have this idea that you can go into a career with maybe taking less salary, maybe a half or two-thirds of the salary you can get in the private sector, and your job is actually serving the public. And we've ended up with a political class, it seems to me, that you wouldn't trust your children with. And Mandelson has done that to the Labour Party. Now, we always knew, Margaret Thatcher and the Conservatives were, into privatising stuff, and I think she went too far. But Mandelson's job in the Labour Party was to make sure that there was no going back. So, for example, with the water industry, people like Tony Blair, there was some pressure in the 1990s for him to say, bring the water back into public ownership.
Yeah.
And to me, that is the big taboo in modern Britain, is many of these old industries, whether it be water, gas, electricity. I mean, we all know about the cost of living crisis and the massive amount of profits that are being taken at all levels in these old utilities. And Mandelson represents to me one of the major figures within the Labour movement who kowtowed to the City of London and changed the direction of the Labour Party towards being somewhere where it was. What did he said? He said something about being filthy rich. So I think
he said he was supremely relaxed about people who got filthy rich.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, I think if you're going to get your money by honest means, but I don't see him as an honest character. And you've said a few times yourself, you've used the L word, which you've got to be a little bit careful about using, but you can use that with him because he was shown to be telling untruths. So I'm really pleased.
I mean, there's no doubt he is a liar. Like, there's no doubt he is a liar. He has lied on. I'm not talking about anything he's said or done in regard to Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, there've been numerous occasions where he has lied, and he was sacked from cabinet twice. So I just wonder what you think all of this says, Tony, about trust in our institutions. I'm not just talking about the Labour Party. I'm not just talking about the monarchy. I'm talking about how we trust the society, how we trust these people to run our country.
Well, I mean, as I said, would you trust your kids with these people? I certainly wouldn't. I think that's what we've lost in my adult life, really, since the 1970s and 1980s. Yeah. There were some quite affable figures in politics in those days, people who you did feel that they may be, doing something for themselves. But now it seems to me that most of the people who are in politics are in there to further a career. They're not there to serve the public anymore. And I would like to see the Labour Party sort of get its mojo back in a way. And Mandelson is the man who put Starmer in his job. And it was amazing when McSweeney resigned the other day. Yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, well, how can McSweeney resign? Because, how can he go? Because he's the man who put Starmer in there. It's like Starmer is slowly, they're fleeing the sinking ship, it seems to me.
Well, it's really interesting with McSweeney as well. I mean, McSweeney sat in a room with various people, including Lord Little, Roger Little, and Lisa Nandy and various other people, and basically chose Keir Starmer. He said, this is my project, and Keir Starmer is going to be the vessel through which I do it. So, I mean, Starmer doesn't really exist politically without McSweeney.
I think you're right. I think
it's all outlined. You should read the book by Gabriel Pogrund and Patrick McGuire, Get In. It's a great book, Tony. I think you'd enjoy it.
I've read The Fraud, which is a similar book.
Okay.
I think what you've got with Starmer is somebody who's basically, there's a ticking time bomb now. Everything he says, people will be thinking, we don't trust him. And so who's going to replace him? It seems to be the next question. And if he clings on any longer...
Who would you like it to be, Tony? You've supported Labour. What's your, in the past, who would you like to be leader of the Labour Party?
I'd love to see, who I'd love to see? Andy Burnham. Someone like him.
Okay.
Barry Gardner as... maybe health secretary. I don't like the new breed of people that Mandelson has been bringing in. Remember, many of these MPs we've got now were chosen by Peter Mandelson.
Yeah,
so in a way, he doesn't even have to be an MP or in Parliament.
His influence continues. Tony, really interesting talking to you. Thank you. Let's speak to Mark in Lincolnshire. He definitely isn't a Labour supporter. Mark, how are you this evening?
Hi, good evening, Peter.
Hi there. What point would you like to make this evening, Mark?
What I want to talk about, which I've been itching to talk about, if I'm honest, is this whole thing, the announcements that Reform have been making on immigration and deportation, and I think they've touched on some benefits for immigrants and stuff like that. I'm just interested and just kind of wanted the viewers to know, really, that they've literally, having called them neo-Nazis, they've literally taken the Restore Britain deportation policy, cut and pasted segments out of it, and done some flashy little, press announcements about this stuff. That's literally what they've done. They haven't come up with these ideas on their own. Even banning the burqa, which in itself I actually found hilarious. You know, you got Zia Youssef last year when Sarah Porchin mentioned this. He called it a stupid idea and quit the party hours later. Do we remember that? Are we just? I
do remember that, and now he's announcing it and saying that he wants to do it.
Himself. It's like, are you actually kidding me? You know.
Well, you're allowed to change your mind, Mark. You're allowed to change your mind. People, including Zia Youssef, are allowed to change their mind, are they not?
The problem is, Peter, Reform, Nigel Farage, Reform themselves. They've had. I went through this, Peter. They've had 5 different positions on deportation and immigration in the last 2 years. There comes a point where you have to sit back, and I'm sorry, you have to say, well, can I trust these people on this? And the answer to that is no. I don't see how anybody can trust them on this. You know, at the end of the day,
what makes you distrust someone who changes their opinion? It's not as if they've said, they haven't been tested in government to say we're doing this, oh, actually, this is the wrong policy. They would say they're developing their position, they're getting ready for an election, and they're developing their policy based on what people say to them. It's okay to change your mind, is it not? Maybe not 5 times, but...
No, that's not the point, Peter. They've had the position that they're on now. They've had similar positions to this, and then rubbished it. As soon as they get questioned on it, particularly by, somebody from the left-wing media, they'll start softening down on the policy, and then they'll totally go away from the policy. I mean, to give you an idea, in an interview again last year, Nigel Farage with Stephen Edgington, he says, I'm not going to get dragged down the route of mass deportations. Now he's announcing up to 300,000 a year. You know, when you're holding these kind of views, when you're quite adamant on this, because he was asked this question several times, and he was asked it in other interviews, and he gives the same answer. When you hold those kind of views, you're really making me have to stretch to now believe that what you're saying is correct, especially when you've had some serious competition launch last week that are now really, honest, out there, truthful, and saying it how it is. If you want these things, this is how you do it. They're not mincing about with this stuff. They're saying this is how you have to do it. We're not going to lie to you about it. And they've been quite honest about that. And all of a sudden, you've got Reformer basically saying, oh, these are not a threat, they're just based on the online world, blah, 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 and all this stuff. Yet all of a sudden now they're basically copying and pasting their stuff a week later. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, political. I know you're annoyed about this, but political parties do that all the time. They see policies. They see policies from rivals. They see that they gain traction, and then they steal those policies. That's what happens in politics.
It's dirty politics. It's how politics has always been. The point I'm making, Peter, Reform had been set up originally, if people remember back, Reform was set up originally as a grassroots movement to smash the establishment. That's what they were set up for. They've literally become the establishment, quite literally, by some of the people they've brought in that are now, he's announcing in his Tory...
But you have to broaden your appeal, do you not? If you're Nigel Farage, you've got to broaden your appeal if you want to be elected.
I don't necessarily think you do, Peter. I think people are catching up. I'm waiting for...
I mean, Rupert Lowe is not going to be the next Prime Minister of this country.
I'm waiting for somebody like you to catch up to what's actually going on out there, what's going on in the world.
Rupert Lowe is not going to be the next Prime Minister of this country, Mark.
I never said he would be. Okay? What I'm saying is the world is changing. Yeah? What people are wanting is changing. You're seeing it from the left wing, and you're seeing it from the right wing.
But we're seeing that in how people are voting. They're moving to Reform UK.
Yeah.
On the right, they're moving to Greens on the left, if the left and right even exist anymore, because they're so intertwined in different ways. And that is the gradual change that is going to happen. And maybe they'll go in the direction of Restore UK in the longer term. But the point is, Restore Britain, I should say, in the longer term, Mark. But the fact is that Nigel Farage is a very talented, very intelligent man who knows how to broaden his appeal, and he knows that if he's going to be elected, especially by former Conservative voters, that he needs to broaden that appeal. That is what he needs to do.
Yeah, and that's fine and fair enough, and he can do that. He can be Mr. Showman. He can do all that stuff. All I'm saying at the end of the day, Peter, it doesn't interest me.
Okay.
I'm sick of, because at the end of the day, and this is what annoys me really, or one of the things that annoys me, there's lots of things that annoy me.
I've picked that up over the couple of years we've been chatting.
Yeah,
final point, Mark, if you would, because we've just got to go to a break.
Final point is, the thing that annoys me is when you've got people that want something anti-establishment, want something grassroots, and then they allow themselves to be dragged into the exact same establishment over and over again. Okay. Because my point is, if you're going to vote for reform, I pretty much guarantee you right now, you are essentially voting Tory, and they're going to let you down. And that's my last point.
Mark, thank you for that. Good night to you, Mark in Lincolnshire there. Thanks to him for his thoughts on all of that. We'll take some more calls after the break, and we'll have a chat with Patrick Hoskin about what's coming up in her programme between 10 and 1. Stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jane in Marbella is with me now. She's given us a call all the way from Spain. Jane, you're very welcome to the programme. How are you doing?
Thank you, Peter. You are going to be too young to remember this of Mandelson. Probably 30 years ago, he was involved in a mortgage fraud.
I remember this. I remember this. This was 1999. He was Northern Ireland Secretary. and Geoffrey Robertson, who was then the Paymaster General, gave him something like £370,000. He didn't declare it, and then he was sacked.
Correct. But he applied for a mortgage with the Britannia Building Society.
Okay.
And there was a big stink about it.
Yes.
There is something else I would like to mention, and I think it has to be very delicately mentioned.
Go ahead.
I find it quite staggering with all that is going on at the moment, particularly with Mandelson. Blair has hardly said anything, but the one who is silent is Alistair Campbell.
Yes, yes, he has said very, very little indeed. He and Tony Blair and Gordon Brown and Peter Mandelson were the ones who basically established New Labour, and it is fascinating to hear how little we have heard from Alistair Campbell. What question would you like to ask Alistair Campbell?
What do you know?
Yeah.
Why aren't you speaking?
Yeah.
I think it's very simple. I mean, let me make it clear. I am not a Labour voter. I can remember the night Blair was voted in, and I said to some Conservative friends, "Oh my God."
I remember my teacher. I was in primary 7, so I was 10 years old, and I remember.
I was going to say you were about 10.
I was 10, and I remember my teacher saying, you know, the smile doesn't go the whole way to the eyes, don't trust the sky. And I said, no, it's going to be interesting, it's going to be different. I think he's going to be a different kind of politician. He certainly was a different kind of politician. Jane, thank you for your call. That is Jane in Marbella in Spain. No carbs before Marbs, as we know. Janice in Essex wants to talk about the Chagos deal. Janice, you're very welcome to the programme, and thank you for ringing 0344 499 1000. What would you like to say?
Oh, hiya. Thank you for taking my call. A great lady that you just had on.
Yeah, great to talk to her.
Right in what she said. I watched the Tony Blair programme a few days ago. He did speak on that one. But what I want to know is, when are we actually going to get to the bottom of the sleaze that has gone on with Chagos? It is nothing about giving away the island, because it's our safety. It's who's getting the money, and it appears.
We know we're paying.
You know, one of them is getting 8 million. You know that.
Well, no, let's
allegedly.
just be. Well,
Allegedly.
it's not that it's allegedly. It's that we know that Philippe Sands' firm got £8 million over a period of time from the Mauritian government, the human rights lawyer. Philippe Sands, he will have got probably most of that as the King's Council involved with that. So I don't think there's any question over that. But there is a question certainly over why this deal was put forward, and
China.
Also, can we get out of it, Janice?
China.
You think it's China?
I won't care. I think most people would turn around and say, if we've got to pay $2 billion to Mauritian, they've already apparently cutting their taxes for their people because they're going whoopee-doo, wonderful day. If we have to lose $2 billion on paying them off, that's far better than what we're doing. I think this absolutely stinks, and I think the country really needs to hold Starmer to account on this. Okay, Conservatives before, all of them, but he's trying to rush it through. It's all to do with China.
Okay.
China owns half of Africa. Look at where that strait is. It goes straight for there. That's where it's all about. China.
Well, okay. Well, listen, thanks for your call. Janice in Essex there.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thanks now, Janice. Good evening. Thank you to everybody who's welcomed me to this slot as well. Lots of very kind messages. Peter Kyle says this person said the Mandelson appointment was a risk worth taking. The question is why? What was he tasked with overseeing in America? Why did he tell Trump to get his initial approval? What did he tell Trump to get his initial approval of the Chagos deal? All communication by Mandelson regarding Chagos with the Trump administration needs to be made available. Lots of other people getting in touch, and I like Matthew. Says this person, says Leslie, but he is wrong on Starmer. It's the fact Mandelson kept in touch with a convicted paedophile, and Starmer knew that as well. So thank you for that message. I know lots of people have sent in WhatsApp messages too, and voice notes. We haven't got to all the voice notes this evening, but very, very interesting to hear from Yvonne in Somerset as well. He says, I think your caller Mark needs to wake up and smell the coffee, says Yvonne in Somerset. And Martin says Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain are just pushing Reform UK into where we need them. So thank you to a very nice comment from Catherine in Cardiff, who said, some of us geeks cannot get enough of politics and current affairs. I know how you feel. I'm certainly one of those geeks. And there's a very nice, I better not read this out, otherwise my head will explode, but Catherine has said that she enjoyed the interview with Dame Karen Bradley. I spoke to her yesterday on Maccabi Tel Aviv. So thank you, Catherine, for all your very kind comments. Lots to discuss, not just tomorrow night between 7 and 10 when I will be here, but indeed tonight, this very evening, with Petri Hoskin, who will be here between 10 and 1. Petri, good evening.
Good evening, Peter Cardwell. How are you?
I'm very well.
We haven't done this for a while, have we?
I don't think I don't think I've ever done this slot before, 7 till 10. I've certainly handed over to you
when I've done
before,
when I've been wandering around.
I think you've been doing other slots, but as far as I know, I've never done 7 till 10. I've done everything else.
Don't think you have.
But anyway.
Anyway, coming up.
You've certainly done 10 till 1 before.
I've certainly done that. I love it. It's my favourite of all the time slots I've ever done, because I get to talk for an hour to phone in on Talkback. And today's Talkback, I want to talk about what King Charles knew and when. And if it is, there's an email that proves Charles was warned about his brother's secret deals, right? That's come out. So I'm just wondering if that is true, if that turns out to be true, that Charles knew and didn't say anything. What does that say about the king? Can he remain in position?
From 2019, it was actually our colleague Isabel Oakeshott who wrote about it in the Mail on Sunday yesterday. I also think that we need to ask questions. She can't answer them anymore, of course, very sadly, because she's no longer with us. But Queen Elizabeth II, what did she know? When did she know it? What was she told? What was she not told? What decisions did she make?
Because if this goes deeper than just Andrew, the royal family have got a lot to answer for. So that's going to be talked back. I want to know what people think about that. Whether, you know, Andrew should lose his 8th place